The board meeting is open and the live stream is on.
You could just making sure that the meeting is open now.
Yes, the meeting is open and the live stream is on.
Okay. Good evening, Azusa community, students, parents, and staff. Welcome to the Board of Education Governance Workshop. Today, for item 1.1, I would like to call the meeting to order on Tuesday, October 21st, 2025 at 5:32 p.m. Moving forward on to item 1.2, roll call. We have Board Vice President Benavides.
Here.
We have Board Clerk Rodriguez Pena.
Present.
We have Board Member Greer.
Here.
Board Member Ramos.
Here.
And I am present today. Moving on to item 1.4, Pledge of Allegiance. There's no student for the Pledge of Allegiance, if we could all please stand. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're now moving on to item 2.1, approval of the agenda. Can I please get a first motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Can I please get a second? We have first by Board Member Rodriguez Pena. We have second by Board Member Greer. Any discussion? Seeing that there's none. Colleagues, can you please place your vote? We can go ahead and do a hand vote. We'll start off with my right, Board Member Greer.
Yes.
Board Member Vice President Benavides.
Yes.
We have Board Member Clerk Rodriguez Pena.
Yes.
And we have Board Member Ramos.
Yes.
And I yes, 5-0 approval of the agenda for today. We're moving on to item 3.1, public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. Lika, do we have anybody on board?
We have no hands raised on Zoom.
We have no one on Zoom.
Okay, great. Thank you for the response. Hope, do we have any blue cards? Since no blue cards or no one's on board, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item. Moving on to item 4.1, participation of board governance workshop. And we will go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Ortega.
Thank you, Board President Arianes. Tonight, we have our CSBA facilitator, Angelina Pride, who has been with us for quite a while. The mission of tonight is Angelina will be facilitating the scores of the board self-evaluation and bringing up some points for conversation as we grow as a governance team. So with that, I'd like to turn over to Ms. Angelina Pride.
If I may, just correct for the record, it's CSBA facilitator extraordinaire.
Yes.
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 You're way too kind. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
So good evening, board superintendent, executive assistant, who always helps me out as well. Good evening to all of you, and thank you for having me back again. And I do enjoy coming back to work with your board. So we did our board self-evaluation. This year we did have a few little bumps. We had to extend the timeline a little while, and then we had to get some of you to do it by hand. I understand life happens. Trust me, I understand. But we made it work and we got the results, everyone's results for the board self-evaluation. But you will notice that the one from 2024 looks different from the one for this year. And that's because I had to recreate this year, because once we close, I couldn't get back into like enter scores. So I had to do everything manually. So it does look different, but same strategy, same tool. So with that, I want to jump right in, be respectful of everyone's time. Before we get started with looking at the results for 2025, I just want to give you a little bit of data. I love data because I like being able to compare things. So understand that everything that's green is a strength for most members. So that's the top one. Next, you have blue, which is a simple majority, agreed with the statement. Then you have yellow or gold, which means area of growth for simple majority. And then you have red, which means an area of growth for most members. So green is the best. Blue is like, yeah, we're still good. Yellow is like, we need to talk about this. And red is like, we really need to talk about this. So let me just give you some data from the last 2 years. So in 2024, of all of the statements, and there is a total of 58 statements that you check whether you agree with, if you're almost always agree or often, less often, rarely, or not sure. So in 2024, you had 36 greens on your evaluation form. For 2025, you had 36 greens. For 2024, you had 21 blues. For 2025, we only had 14 blues, so we went down by 7. In 2024, we had 1 yellow. In 2025, we had 4 yellows. We went up by 3. And in 2024, we had 0 reds, and we celebrated that last year. This year, we had 4 reds. So we'll be discussing these as we go through, but I wanted to give you that information. So you're up by 14 scores, meaning there were 14 categories where you ranked them higher this year than you did last year. There were 2 that you ranked lower, and then there was 33 that stayed the same as far as color. This is as far as color. So last year, every statement had at least one person who said that the statement was a strength for most members. This year you had 3 that didn't have anybody who said that it was a strength for the members. So like I said, I like having comparisons as we start to talk about things. So I just wanted to share that with you. So with that, let's get right into it. So number 1, the board is focused on achievement for all students. Everybody agreed on that one. They had a 5. And I think that came through strongly during your regular workshop as well. Any comments on that one? Are we good? So I'm glad that this one was a 5. This one is the most important, that the board is focused on achievement for all students. So number 2, the board is committed to a common vision. So last year, this one was a green and now it's a blue. But the common vision, I gave you a copy of your board handbook, your governance handbook, because there were a couple that I just wanted to refer back to this to remind you of some things, because this should have been 5, because a board should be committed to a common vision, because it's all here in your governance handbook, which you all agreed to when you do all the work for your vision, your mission, your goals, your core values, all of that. So if all of you subscribe to that, then it should be a 5. Superintendent?
I am so sorry to butt in here.
Okay.
Just for myself and my learning, in 2024, this was green,
Right.
right? Two members said almost always. 3 members said often. This time, 3 members said almost always, and 2. So it's actually a stronger score.
You're right. You caught
an
error for me. Thank you. I'm sorry.
And I think there's several like that, Ms. Pryde. I think some reds are not reds.
Um,
I
when we
think.
get, when we
Yeah,
get
we'll
to
get there,
it,
yes.
yeah, and now, because I know there was some in, when I talked to CSBA is how they told me, the reason why, but let's talk about them when we get to them. Okay, thank you. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so my apologies. So that one is a green. So it stayed the same. So good. The board is committed to a common vision. And again, I had to do this one by hand. So we may see a couple of mistakes and I apologize in advance for those. So number 3, the board stays focused on district priorities. Of course, 4 of you said almost always, 1 said often. Any questions or comments on that one? Okay. So number 4, the board works well together. So this year you had 3 often and 2 less often. And so this one was a red by CSBA standards because it has nobody who said almost always, and it had 2 people who said less often. So let's take a quick moment and chat about this one. So the board works well together. Anybody want to start off and maybe provide some feedback on why this one went down? Are you not feeling that the board is working well together? Are there challenges that you faced?
Ramos?
Trustee Ramos?
Yes, being the newest member, I've only been here for less than a year, but from my perspective, there's been very few meetings where we've all been together actually. So for me being, newly here and not having as much experience under my belt, it's hard to assess for me yet if we're working well so far, but I think for me it's we haven't had very many meetings where the whole board is present.
So we're having board absences?
Yes.
So let me ask a question. So you said that there's been very few meetings where all 5 trustees have been here at once. Let's talk about that because that's important. When you run for school board, you know in advance that there's this many meetings that are critical each month that you have to be at. And like I said, I understand things happen. I was a board member myself, so sometimes I had to go out of town for something or my job called me away for something. But we make a commitment to be here. If you're not here, then are you really doing the work of the district, of the community as well? So the absences, how are you feeling about that? If you're putting in the work and you're being here at the meetings and maybe others aren't, or am I overthinking it? Is it maybe like 1 absence here, 2 absence there? Give me an idea of what we're talking about.
I just wanted to add regarding that in the past, just this year, we started only meeting once a month. We used to meet twice a month. So I know, people work, and I know it's hard sometimes for them to get here, but I was hoping that once a month would make it easier for all of us to be. And I'm not, I don't work, I'm retired, but I do have a life also. But I feel personally that, this is like my job, being on the board. And I think the reason why I ran to be the voice and also to be present and to, vote on certain policies or speak of what's going on. I feel it's my job. So I just think that us having it once a month, I would have assumed that people would be here more often.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I can add it.
Trustee Burke.
I think I had similar feelings, and I had to do some personal kind of internal thinking and processing around it as to like everybody here is a grown adult, and I trust that everybody here is doing what they can to be here. And yet I do still find myself as I don't know what word to use. I guess I'll use bothered, but I'll use bothered for lack of a better word, about some of the absences. Like that's really been a significant amount of absences, I would say. And I think after I spent some time thinking about it, for the most part, I think there's the aspect of just honor and honoring the roles that we have and sharing in that as board members. But I think what is probably even most significant for me, where it matters the most, is when it affects and impacts our ability to do work as a team. And so, a couple things that come to mind: the way in which this meeting was perpetually kind of pushed back, and even at our last meeting, there was a suggestion that due to absences on the board, that we push this meeting back even further and wait till next month to schedule. And I ended up saying, can we please just hold ourselves accountable and have the meeting? Because I think we not only do we owe it to ourselves but to our community to do it. So when it impacts the work, another thing that comes to mind is the whole process around our superintendent evaluation earlier this year. That was personally frustrating. And again, I am well aware of the fact that there were some very extreme things going on with some board members, on the team that I have absolute compassion for. And at the same time, I think there's what I perceived as like a lack of some communication and understanding of how then do we proceed in such a way, while honoring the structures that exist for us as a team. And so, I guess if I had to pinpoint it, it's when it gets to the point where it impacts our ability to get work done. That's when it kind of boils over for me personally.
Thank you. Well said. Any other comments on this one? So I'm not the type to lecture, but again, remember, you ran for the position. People voted for you. They expected that you would be here to represent them and to make the decisions for the students. And I totally understand that we all have things. I've had to miss board meetings to go out of town for a funeral, like I said, once for a mandatory conference for work. So I know things come up, but when it's significant, it does become an issue. And then you have to evaluate and say, am I committed to this? So keep that in mind. And I think that Trustee Greer put it best when he said that it impacts the work that the board can do, especially if there's no quorum. If you have that many people going, or if you have to keep changing your study sessions or other meetings that are scheduled outside of your regular board meeting. So hopefully that will change and that it will be better. As we come in, to the holiday season, you're going to have a break to take care of some things, and hopefully that the attendance will improve, because that's one of the things that you committed to. And like I said, I don't want to lecture because I don't know why people missed. I can't speak on that, but the entire board has to be present in order to take care of the business of the district properly and to have an effective meeting. And the other thing I will say too is to make sure that your voice is heard, because if there's 3 members here and there's something on the agenda and it's voted and it's carried and it's something you didn't like, you don't have the opportunity to say, hey, I don't like that. Why are we doing this? Because you weren't here to let your voice be heard and cast your vote. Something you said could have changed someone's mind. But just hopefully things will improve. It does sadden me to hear that. Thank you for bringing that up, because it is something that has to be addressed, and hopefully things will improve and as you move forward.
I'm gonna make a comment. So for me personally, I was dealing with some health issues, so I couldn't make the board meetings. When I made a commitment, I made a commitment. If you look at my history of the last 3 years, and you'll see that most of the time I was here. It's just been this last year. And due to, economic reasons, just like everyone else is struggling right now, right? Because the cost of living is higher. I had to go back and work full time. When I initially took this, decided to run and stay committed, I didn't have a full-time job. I was working local part-time job. I recently got a full-time job maybe 7, 8 months ago. And I was driving from Mount Monty and I was getting off. So I was trying to be here at the board meetings and then working through my ailments. I was trying to make as many board meetings as I could. And then I even sat in for, led the meetings several times. So for me personally, it's that. And but I'm committed and I'm now working closer, so I don't think that's going to be an issue for me. It's in fact I shared it with Mr. Ortega that, hey, I'm closer now. I'm in Covina and I'll be here on time. I'll be here at the meeting. So as long as I'm not sick, I mean, my health, yes, I made a commitment because that's what I ran for, but my health is also a priority. And if
Absolutely.
I'm not healthy, then how could I really be conscious of what I'm reading and I just need to be healthy so that I know that the decisions I'm making and what I'm reading really is making a decision on behalf of the best practices for our students.
Absolutely. And thank you for
Mhm.
sharing that. And I don't think it was the intention of anyone to call any one person out to make somebody say anything, especially for personal reasons. But thank you for sharing that. And, like I said, life happens. It's just hard to get the business of the district done, but health is always going to be number one priority, definitely. And you have to have a job. So most of us have to have a job. So yes, but thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Okay. Okay. So let's move on.
I'm sorry. Could I just make one more comment on
Yes.
that? On that?
Yes.
I just want to say, if there's anything, I'll speak on behalf of myself. Although I would be surprised if other board members who spoke up didn't agree with this. The intention and if there's anything that was said that made anyone feel personally attacked in regards to that's not the intention.
Right.
Know that I understand that when we're having to talk about things that are read, there's potential discomfort that's in that. I'll say from my perspective, you do not owe me an explanation or or whatnot, but even you sharing that, so you don't have to, but the fact that you even shared what you shared right now is very helpful for me as I'm kind of like wondering and kind of processing like what some of the absences are. And so again, it's a strange balance. You don't owe, but by sharing it helps just kind of like the mental and sometimes emotional load of that and knowing. So thank you for not having to share. And I maintain you don't have to, but the fact that you did and that you took the time to speak that out loud, that just personally is helpful for me as a member of the team. And so I just want to thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay. So moving on. Let's see here. We're on number 5. Am I good on number 5?
I believe it's number 6. We're only going through the reds and the yellows.
Okay.
Or you went through all of
No, you're fine.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Well, the other ones I'm just
Skimming through.
Yeah. So
Okay.
number 5, the board commits the time to become informed. When you come to meeting, do you feel like everyone is informed and have read their packet and they're able to ask questions that are beneficial to those who are watching and those who are present from the community, and that you're able to take a vote where you believe that your vote is solid and that you have a strong understanding of what you're voting on? Okay. So number 6. So this is one of the ones. So what they told me was that anytime there's more less often than there was almost always, but this was a voice one because we didn't get to send it through the computer. So what did you come out with?
Compared to last year, this would be a blue because you have 2 almost always and 1 often and 2 less often. But if you look at number 34 of 2024, you only had 1 almost always, 2 often and 2 less often. So this year, this was actually scored better than in 2024.
For
So
number 34?
if you look at number 34, if you look at the outcomes there, It's
No,
1, 2, 2,
yeah.
right?
Oh, I
And
see
it's
what you're
blue.
saying. Yes.
But this one is 2, 1, 2. So I'm assuming that should have been a blue.
Okay. So like I said, this was done by humans, so I apologize. So let's talk about it. Individual board members do not undermine board decisions. Once you take a vote and you make a decision, are all of you on board with it? Do you stand by it, whether you voted for it or not? Yes, no, maybe so.
You know, you know what I do like to praise my board here is that we and I said it before even to the LSVA that we don't have a majority here. We vote from our hearts and we don't meet before meetings, after meetings, at lunch. You know, when we come here, we're all here for the right reasons. So I feel good that, you know, when I come to vote, I know I vote and I know that is Mr. Ramos is truly vote, and I know it's what my right on and even my colleagues, it's their true vote. We don't, because people will say, "Oh, do you guys have a majority?" And I'm like, "No, we don't. We
Not all
really
the
don't."
time, right?
And I think, you know, we come in with our passion, with our heart, and for the right reasons, and we vote however it comes out. That's how it falls. It's never the same, and we leave the same way. That's I like to thank my board for us working together very well in that way, in that manner.
Thank you for saying that. And anytime I facilitate one of the workshops for new trustees, that's the one thing that I always try to drive home
Mhm.
is that they don't have to vote yes just because all of their colleagues are voting yes.
Mhm.
They need to be informed. They need to have read the material. They need to know what they're voting on. And then they need to vote based upon what
Mhm.
they feel like they're
Yeah.
hearing from their community, from their constituents, what they feel is best for the students, or
Mhm.
what they feel is best for the staff. That's how the vote of a trustee should be made, not because the person sitting next to
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
voted one way. So I always tell them it's not always going to be a majority, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Yes, Trustee Greer.
So personally, I wish that this was not an anonymous survey, because because I think that it would, I think it's important that we are willing to be honest with each other and honest to share when there are issues or when there are concerns. So if I had my way, it wouldn't be anonymous, and we would still be honest. And this highlights one of the areas where I think it becomes potentially unhelpful that it's anonymous, because as I look at this, even though I recognize that 3 out of the 5 of us believe that it is either often or almost always that individual board members do not undermine board decisions, the fact that there are 2 board members on the dais who believe that less often, meaning that majority of the time there are board decisions that are undermined. If that's the perspective, honestly, of even one board member, I would really want to know that and know the thoughts and perspectives of that board member,
Mhm.
those board members, and to have that conversation, because if that is happening, that's a very serious issue that I think warrants significant amount of time.
And William, thank you for that's a good point.
Huh?
And just real quick, and then I'm going to come to you, Trustee Ramos, is when we say undermine, this is how I look at that statement, and you can tell me how you look at it. When I say undermine, after the vote, meeting's over, you leave, you pick up your phone and you start posting on social media how much you hate it, how wrong the board was to vote for something. You go out to the school sites, tell everybody how horrible the vote was. You undermine the vote of the board as a whole. And you remember, you're a governance team, not governance individuals. So once the vote is taken and it carries, it stands. So you find a way to support it. You may not be on board 100%, but there's usually something good and you can find in it. Just like that person you don't like, you try to find something good in them that you can get on board with. Trustee Ramos?
Yeah, just to kind of echo what Board Member Greer was commented on. I'm really surprised, regardless of the color, and I know that color is probably off, but I'm very surprised at even that there's any on the often or less often. So what I was thinking about as I was reading this and going over it, sometimes with these questions, because they have a negative, like the do not undermine, sometimes, and I don't remember how I answered it. If I did, I'd be very open about it, but maybe the way I read it or the way someone reads it, you think you're answering the opposite, right? And sometimes this happens, this kind of surveys, right? Yeah, like a double negative or, you know, so that, but definitely very surprised, you know, just to echo what board member Greer said. I mean, yeah, that, under my, I've never felt that at all. So anyways.
Thank you for saying that, because last year we were looking at revising this. I think I might have told you all that when I was here before, and we had some leadership changes, some retirements and moving out of towns, and so we have some new managers. So staff meeting on, I think it's next Tuesday. So I'm going to bring this up again, and we just got an email today asking us what we wanted on the agenda. So I'm going to write myself a note to bring this up again because it got put on hold. But I agree with you that this needs to be updated, this whole tool. So thank you for bringing that up. Trustee.
Yes, and I wanted to add, if there's somewhere they can put, if they revise it, the reason why they answered that question, because maybe, again, we don't understand it, you know, or they may say something that will trigger that that's not what they meant. You know, they can put a comment on there. That might be helpful also, you know, right? Why do they feel that way? And then at least you can kind of figure out, maybe they didn't get it, or maybe they have a real reason for it, right? That would be helpful to be able to explain yourself why you wrote that or why you selected that number.
Okay, so you want to see a place for comments,
Yeah.
and then you want to see if it cannot be anonymous. And overall, it does need an update. So clarify the questions so that they aren't confusing.
Yeah.
I got you. I'm going to email this to my boss when I get home.
I have a comment.
meeting.
I myself, I don't remember how I answered that question, but I think, you know, when you're going through the survey, first of all, I mean, it was extended so far, right? And then you're reading through it, you're like, I think I got it last minute, I'm trying to get it done. And so, yeah, I think, you know, simplification would be better, and maybe not a double negative. And just because sometimes, you know, we're just trying to get through the day, right? So especially now that I'm working full time. So yeah, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
No, I appreciate the feedback. Thank you. And maybe I'll suggest that we use your board as a pilot. That would be, it would be nice though to have a board to look at it and kind of see if we're on the right track with it. So I'm going to ask him and see if he'll let me even take the lead on it to get it updated.
I just wanted to make one other comment. I too, myself, I mean, I think we pretty much work well together. I don't hear anything negative about any of us or board decisions that are made. And I just want to tell the board that I appreciate that, because I know there's a lot of boards out there that they don't work cohesively, and you know, we collaborate, we work cohesively, we love each other. I think we agree to disagree, you know. Yeah, we're gonna run into bumps, but that's just life.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Can I, so I know we talked about how there's the potential for the tool to be confusing, which might have led to that, but this is still something that concerns me. And so maybe for the sake of clarity and clearing the air, if there is a board member who does feel like the individual board members undermine board decisions, would you be willing to share if you believe that that's the case, so that we can have that conversation?
Well, I just make the comment that I was surprised, as I made earlier. So yeah, and if I had it, I'd bring it, I'd put it on the table.
And that's why
sure.
I brought up, you know, how we work together, and you know, we'd have a majority. We come in together, we leave together. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So let's move on. Number 7, board members agree on the role and responsibilities of board and superintendent. I don't think that there's any issue here. All of you said almost always. 2 of you said often. Is there any concerns about the role and responsibilities of the board or the superintendent? Or is it just like sometimes, is there a reason why anybody feels like this doesn't happen all the time? Your roles and your responsibilities, again, are in here. They're also in your board bylaws in the 9,000s. It's very, very clear of what they are. Yes.
Yeah,
trustee.
again, like what Maria mentioned, I think if, just having two people saying often,
Mhm.
I'd be interested to know why they felt that way.
I think it goes back to what you were saying, and then what you were saying, Trustee Ramos, as well, about how the questions worded.
Mhm.
Different perspective.
True.
When you read it, you interpret it differently.
Mhm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone, and please do not feel like you have to say, yeah, I was one of the first people who put, the second one, often, and I didn't put almost always. Don't feel like you have to say what your scoring level was at all. But if there's anyone who would like to speak out about it, if you know that this was you, Trustee Rodriguez Pena actually printed out her results so she could remember
Yeah, I
what
didn't
she
write that.
put. But unfortunately, when I get it, it doesn't tell me like who did
Yeah.
it. Did see those of you who had to do it on paper. I saw yours, but I did not bring those with me. So bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you. Bless you. So anyone want to talk about it? Okay. Okay, moving on. Board members follow board agreements regarding speaking for the board. Two of you said often, or actually it should be one, I'm sorry. One of you said often, four of you said almost always. Is there a reason why we had an often? Is there anybody who feels like a board member, without naming names, at any time has spoken on behalf of the board without consent from the board?
You want number 8?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, because there's 6, right?
Yeah, she just
Yeah, I
said that on
said
one of
that,
them. There
yeah.
was
So
There's only one.
Yeah, oh, I had
Yeah,
already,
not two.
I had caught it, thank
Yeah.
you. So just remember that as a board, and again, I'm gonna keep going back to this, it's very clear in your handbook that no individual trustee speaks on behalf of the board. You speak on behalf of yourself, but not the board. So unless there was something that was voted on here, that was a 5-0 vote, and somebody asked, how did you guys vote? You can say, well, the board decided, because the whole board voted yes. But no one should ever say, oh, the board's on board with doing this or doing that, things that the board hasn't discussed, things that haven't come before the board, things that maybe some of the board members don't even know about that's going on in the community or at your school sites. So be very, very careful. It's very clearly outlined in your governance handbook. So please refer to your governance handbook if you're not sure if you should be saying something, but you can speak as an individual, but not on behalf of the board unless it's something that's just very clear where they can go back to the video from the meeting and watch it and see the vote. Any questions? Board members keep confidential matters confidential. Thank you. It's a 5. That one is seriously important, and I don't think that people often realize how important that one is. When you are sworn in as a trustee, anytime I talk to new trustees, the first thing I tell them is get Brown Act training. The second thing I tell them is, do you know you can't disclose things from closed session? Do you know you should be only talking about things that you've talked about in public? So I'm glad this one is a 5. So we're going to move on really quickly. Be thankful for that one. Number 10, the board gives direction to the superintendent only at board meetings. That one is a 5. Superintendent Ortega, I'm going to put you on the spot. Is that one going okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you guys are good. I thought you were gonna get in trouble.
I tried, but he says, look at the board policies.
And it's funny because I have a note here that don't forget that's outlined in your board bylaws, the 9,000s that, you know, nobody gives direction to the superintendent except for in the meeting. And then we have number 11, individual board members do not attempt to direct the superintendent when you're having like one-on-ones with it. And remember, this is when we're talking about things that, you know, the whole board needs to make a decision on. This is not related to something like safety. I know I always give you guys the example of me being at a back to school night or open house and there was a piece of cement that was raised and somebody tripped, you know. Yes, I'm going to call the superintendent right away and say, hey, can you get somebody over here because I don't want anyone to fall. When I saw graffiti on the wall across the street at the school across the street from my house, yes, I'm going to call the superintendent and say, hey, can you get somebody over here to clean off the graffiti? So we're not talking about things like that. We're talking about, do you tell the superintendent, oh, here, I met this person and they have a program and I want you to call them and talk to them about that program and put it over at such and such school because it'll be good. No, that doesn't happen. You can provide the superintendent with information and say, hey, I just heard about this program. Might be something you want to look into, you know, let me know. This is a contact. But you can't say to the superintendent, go do this. You don't have that authority as an individual. Okay? Trustee
Yeah, I was gonna say
Rodriguez?
that. I usually do that, especially when you go to CSBA or CL, you know,
Oh,
everyone
yes.
approaches you, right? You know, but I always give him heads up so he knows, you know, he's gonna call you or else my superintendent will call you. But he knows. I don't tell him what to do, but I do give him the card or the info or give him a little information if I know what I know, and he calls.
I'm sure that
He's good. He's good about that. He usually does call.
I'm sure superintendents hate the week after AEC because everybody comes
Yeah,
back
come
with,
back with all
oh, I
kinds of-
went to this great workshop there. We should do this. Oh, this district is doing that. Oh, did you hear about this?
Yes.
But yeah, but as long as you're just providing the
Mhm.
information and, you know, letting the superintendent look into it.
Mhm.
So anything you want to add to that, Superintendent Ortega?
Not to this, but I want to take a shameless plug. Azusa High School girls flag football won their
Oh.
first CIF game.
Oh, was that
wow.
7-0?
7-0, wow. We're all gonna be fine for that.
That was
What was
great.
the final score?
7-0.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that
Stood
was a
that one.
good game.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. That was a good plug. Okay, so talking about board culture, the board treats the superintendent with respect. We have a 5-0 on that. Superintendent, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Are we good there?
100%.
Awesome. That's always wonderful to hear. The board manages internal conflicts in a productive manner. This was one of the areas that did go down by my count. So, or by my the person who helped me with this by their count as well. So do you feel like the board manages internal conflict in a productive manner? Because nobody said almost always. Nobody said that. 4 of you said often and 1 said less often. So whether or not this is yellow or if it's blue, it doesn't matter because there's a concern there if you're not managing internal conflict properly. One of the things that boards, you can agree, disagree, it's okay. What is not okay to do is to badmouth someone for disagreeing, to argue about it. You can have a discussion, and we all know the difference between a discussion and an argument, right? We know the difference between, you know, saying things, you know, where you get your turn to speak and you speak without being, what's the word I'm looking for? Disrespectful to anybody else on the dais, and saying, well, you're wrong, or I don't like that, or, you know, presenting yourself in any unprofessional way from the dais Is there anybody who wants to talk about why it was all often and there was no almost always? I thought that that would be an easy one, but am I wrong?
I think for me, as I'm looking at this, I'm one of the often, but not almost always. I think, when I think back on this previous year, I think there were times when there's conflict that made its way to the surface from on a board meeting level, and I suppose I'm not sure outside of governance meetings, which we do these once. I mean, it just doesn't happen very often. I'm not sure where and how there is any working on internal conflict. So I don't think that it's to the extent that we're in crisis or anything, but I'm just not sure that we have um, regular mechanisms in place outside of governance meetings. So then it then causes maybe not for us to then wait for this meeting to be able to have some of these kinds of conversations.
Are there conversations that need to be had, that should be had?
If I can give an example,
Yes.
where there's absences, and as we discussed that, and again, grateful for some of the perspective, and it's shared here publicly, which to me is even more unfortunate. But yeah, if there were ways, so maybe that's just me. Maybe I need to, if I have a concern about someone's attendance, maybe that's on me. That I'm reaching out to that person and saying, hey, I'm concerned, and maybe I need to take more personal ownership of that. But I'm just not sure if there were things like that I know were weighing on me a bit. Don't know the mechanism outside of a governance meeting to have that conversation.
Gotcha. And that's a good example. And I think that as a trustee and as part of a governance team, if you do notice what you just said, that somebody's missing, it's okay to send a text and say, hey, missed you at meeting, hope you're okay. Sometimes maybe that might go a long way with helping them to feel better too. So Trustee Rodriguez.
Yeah, but
can you-
also, I agree with Board Member Greer. Um, but we do have protocol that the superintendent just put in the school board packet, stating if there's a situation you have, and I think that's the time. I'm not, like you said, I'm not sure. I mean, because we'll wait. Well, we can't say anything. We shouldn't say anything. We have to wait till the governance. We think this is the only time, which is once
Right.
a year. But in between the year, when a superintendent does write that there's a conflict, you go to the board president or come to him.
Mhm.
Would that be the time? I mean,
You can do
because
that.
how I feel,
Absolutely.
honestly, if Board Member Greer would say, hey, Yolanda, so, why are you asking so much? I'm just saying, if you said that, I would like, wait a minute, I mean, it's my business. But I think in the manner with the superintendent and myself, maybe him sit down and, because now I see he's concerned. He's not just, there's a difference in how you say it, right?
And that's why I said,
And that's
usually
if you just approach me by himself, I don't think I'd be very happy about it. But I think if the superintendent, like he does ask us to let him know before a meeting, if there's a situation with another board member, I think that is a time. And then it's
You
more
can do
professional,
that,
professionally
absolutely.
done.
Yeah, but like I said, also feel free to text someone. You never know what's going on. And just to say, hey, missed you at meeting or hope you're okay. You're not asking for a response. You're not asking them why they weren't here. You're letting them know that there's a concern that that they were absent.
And I
that
did
you were
call board
concerned.
member Benavides,
And
and
so-
I'll tell her I want to see how she was doing.
Yeah, and that's okay. And like I said, it's probably even appreciated by your fellow board members to know, hey, somebody noticed I was gone and they want to make sure that I'm okay. If it gets to a point where you're like getting upset because maybe it is impacting the business of the board and it's been something that's becoming, very frequent, then yeah, maybe you go to the superintendent and say, hey, I have some concerns about this. This is something that I think that we need to have a conversation about. Or you go to the board president and say, hey, I'm concerned about this. This is a conversation that needs to be had about it. And then you can determine which way would be best without offending the person, and also we have to remember we all have personal lives too. And sometimes there's things that go on that maybe we don't want to share or we don't feel comfortable sharing. but so maybe they can just say, hey, you know, this is the situation. And what I do is I encourage you as trustees, if something ever comes up where you have a situation and it's personal and you don't want to disclose it, and you can say to the superintendent, hey, can you, just put in the Friday notice that, I talked to trustee Rodriguez Pena, and she has a personal situation matter going on at this time and has indicated that she may miss a couple of meetings to deal with this situation. Please respect her privacy at this time and give her some grace and understanding. That's something that can be done.
But then we also with the board member's permission, correct? You don't just put it on there, because what if I don't want to tell her what he did?
Well, he didn't
I-
disclose what it was, just said
I know.
personal matter. And usually, I mean, if
Mhm.
it's better to do it that way than to just see somebody constantly missing and
Mhm.
not know why.
Mhm.
So you're not disclosing why, but you're just giving a heads up that, hey, there may be some times where I'm not as visible as I usually am. Maybe you're showing up to anything for a meeting. You never see anything, not graduation, not this or that, but maybe because it's that personal thing. We had, trustees who had an ill family member that when this person was sick, they needed to be there, but they just kind of what I just said, let the superintendent know that, hey, if they're having a bad day, I'm not going to be able to make it. And they didn't disclose what it was to us right away. We just knew that there was a personal reason, and we all respected that, because that people is running for school board is not something that somebody usually does just for fun. At least I haven't met that person yet. When somebody runs for school board, they've seen the work of a board member. And when people are on the board and they really start to see the meetings, the graduations, the all the activities, the awards ceremonies, all of that, they're like, whoa, this is a whole lot more than I thought that it was, but I'm committed. So it's not that people just come in, I won't say ever, but most people don't come and just get a seat on the board, for the board just to, be here every now and then. People that do this, I'd say 98% are committed. So just be willing to extend some grace. Anything else on that one?
I think for me, I just want to say that I kind of agree with not kind of, I agree with board member Greer. It would be nice to have some kind of mechanism, whether it's through maybe our closed session, if whether we want to disclose or not, because I totally understand board clerk Rodriguez Pena, we have to respect the board member, right? If they don't want to disclose, but just to keep us informed, some kind of mechanism, because sometimes we all have different, like I said, we all have personal lives and we all have different situations that come up. But maybe that's a way we communicate with each other, because if we're not that we need to be informed, but maybe if there's some kind of mechanism in place, we don't feel that, we're carrying the load and why aren't they here? And it's like they're absent again. So I don't know what that mechanism is, but I'm just thinking like maybe a side memo to close session. I don't know, because I don't know if there's a policy about that or how that would work, or if another district is doing something very similar or not.
Only what I just told you, where somebody will talk to the superintendent and say, hey, I have something going on. I may be missing a few meetings. I just want to give a heads up to you and to, the board to let you know. I'll do my best to be present. And then our superintendent would just give us a verbal and just say, hey, letting you guys know when we had our one-on-ones, that so-and-so may be missing meetings. I think one time it may be been in our Friday letter, but it didn't disclose any of the reasons why, which I was totally fine with. I was more concerned about the person than anything. I didn't get angry or upset. Nothing. I was just concerned. So don't feel like you have to disclose your personal reasons. So, okay. So we talked about I lost my place. I'm sorry. We talked about board members follow agreements on how they act towards each other. Board
That was
members.
actually number 13. We're
Okay.
actually now on 14. The one
Thank you
just,
for it, President. You're doing a better job than me. So board members follow agreements on how they act towards each other. Again, you had a 4 and a 1. So there's somebody who doesn't feel like that always happens. When conflict arises, how do you handle it? Every board has conflict at some time or another. I think I've encountered maybe one board that I had never seen them have a conflict, and that was because most of them, it was smaller school districts, smaller community. You know, it was easier to know everybody and get along. But sometimes you have disagreements on something that you're voting on or that's on the agenda or a process. Yes, ma'am. Trustee or
I would
board
have to
president.
agree that every board, every relationship has conflict, has a disagreement of what, of any sort, but how conflicts are basically handled, right, towards each other. And I think 15 kind of goes along with that, respecting each other. I think that has a lot of leverage because we don't have to like each other to be on this board.
Absolutely.
We don't have to agree bipartisan. We don't have to agree to be Democrat, Republican, Green, whatever it is, right? Patriot. We don't have to agree. But the one thing that we have in common is that we have a goal and a purpose, and that is to lead this district for our students. However, I have felt that we internally have not productively resolved conflict within our board. I also agree that we do not follow agreements on how we act towards each other when we do not agree with each other. And I also agree that board members do not treat each other with respect when they are angry. Because your true character comes out when you are upset, when you're angry, and how you handle that conflict. And so I've been on this board for some time, and I've had to learn a lot of things on how to handle conflict, how to handle things. And I am going to bring up a situation that happened in this last year.
Okay.
And that is, we on the board have agreed that we do not respond to public comments that day. If we have any type of comments or suggestions, that we basically speak with each other before, and especially because if a person comes and speaks on the dais on public comment, we do not speak on that regardless of if we've spoken to the superintendent, if we have it on our notes to speak on it, we refrain and withdraw from those comments. And so recently, this year, there was an incident where we had a gentleman come speak on public comment and on a non-agenda item. And a board member spoke on the public comment. And I, as the president, asked this board member to please, stop on this comment. And I had to do it 3 times, where this individual got very angry with me because they were saying that I was being disrespectful. But as the board president, it is my duty to keep our meetings in line and to be making sure that we do not speak on public comment or sway the board on any type of future agenda items that may be on our agenda items for us to vote, because that is breaking the board, the Brown Act, because we have not put it on the agenda. We have not publicly spoken about it. And so therefore I am the one that said less often. That is me. I do remember that. And after the incident, I asked the board member if it would be okay if we spoke about this after, and they refused. At first, I said okay, and after we went into closed session, we came back, did open session, continued. Um, and at the end of our board meeting that day, this board member lashed out at me publicly and disrespectful. And I am not okay with that. This board member yelled, belittled me, humiliated me. All that I asked was if we could have a conversation. And this board member did actually, in fact, did stay behind. And we did speak to our superintendent. And while we were at that meeting, the board member lashed out and said I blindsided them, last minute, where they needed to step up, and I said, wait, hold on, that's a different topic. That's a different subject. Can we speak about tonight? And if I was disrespectful, I would like to apologize. I went back and saw the video 2 or 3 times, and not once did I see that I was disrespectful towards this board member. I was just trying to keep order in the board meeting. And the reaction of this board member was uncalled for. It was disrespectful. And I would like to address that at this point.
Absolutely. And one thing I will say right here is a couple of weeks ago, I was facilitating a student board meeting, student board member training, and we had legal there to give the student board members an overview of the Brown Act. And one of the things that we did talk about was public comment. When it comes to public comment, the rules are very clear and very, very brief because it's very simple. You do not respond to public comment unless, and here's the difference. Let's say a parent comes in and they speak during public comment and they are very angry because their kid got suspended and they feel like nobody's been returning my calls and I need to talk to somebody about this. So as a last resort, they show up here and they speak as public comment. The board president can say, superintendent, can you have a member, can you or a member of cabinet take that person outside and get their contact information and reach out to them and find out what's going on? You can do that. That is okay. I verified that. What you cannot do is say, hey, somebody comes in and they want to, I don't know, start an AVID program. And they're like, yeah, I want to start an AVID program at the middle school. And I think it's great. And everybody loves it and everybody wants it. And yeah, let's do this. You cannot say, yes, I think that's a great idea as well. I think we should also start an AVID program. You can't do that. That's illegal. That's a violation of the Brown Act.
And I think we violated that day.
So yes. So what would you like to say about this so that we can clear the air?
How would the board like to handle conflict? Because this will probably not be the first or the last.
I think you're talking about it now, so you're clearing it up. We do have it in writing before the public participation where the Board of Education encourages public input. Board members are not permitted to respond to public comments. It's stated right there.
9,000.
And yes, I was present. I do recall the situation, and I did watch the video just to be sure that what I heard. But I, as a board member, didn't appreciate the conflict between the 2 board members going back and forth because the board president did ask, we do not talk about. And well, I'll say board member Benavides kept talking, and she kept saying, I encourage the board to consider. So I'm telling her, and I'm saying, you're asking me to vote. I'm not telling you to vote right now, but I think you should consider. And I'm like, no, but I'm taking it. You're telling me to say yes to the person that wants whatever they want, right? And we're all 5 of us are sitting here. Right. So she's telling us that's what I took from it. That's what I took from it. And I did state it at that moment. But I think it kept going further and got worse. And, I just walked out because they were arguing or whatever was said. And then you know, that's what I know. But that's the first time, you know, that we have had a conflict this school year, and I'm talking about last year to this year, you know, this school year. And yeah, it wasn't a good feeling as a board member, because you know we're doing great. And that's kind of, I was kind of saddened by it actually, because we're doing great. We
Mhm.
vote how we vote, we go how we go, we don't, that just situation just kind of triggered. And I'm like, "Ugh, I don't want to, I'm out, you know."
So for my clarification, let me ask, how much of this took place while you were on the dais versus when you left?
All of it. So all of it was when I was sitting here.
Then it was in public, so people were hearing and watching it.
Yeah, it is, I'm telling all five of you, a violation of the Brown Act to comment on public comment. Unless there's a situation like the one I just said, where you just ask the superintendent to get information for somebody when they come in and make these big accusations. Trustee Greer, and then I'll come to you, Trustee Ramos.
Yeah, so I want to say, speaking of absences, this was a board meeting that I was absent for, and so I wasn't I wasn't here personally. I wasn't here personally, but I did go back, and I just this was a meeting that I went back and watched and then saw some of it. I actually perceived that situation differently than it seemed that the rest of the board did. I actually don't think that there was a violation of the Brown Act in this particular situation. I also don't think that there was anything wrong with how board member Benavides kind of like handled the situation. I understand why we don't respond, but to your point, Ms. Pride, if someone is coming and advocating for something, and if I were to say that's a good idea, let's do that, that's a clear violation. As I went back and looked at it, what I saw happening effectively was they're being advocating for something to be agendized and for something to be discussed at a future meeting. And so where I think there was an appeal to the board, and I also don't think it's necessary, but I have seen it happen in other instances. I think there was an appeal to say, can we agendize this? Can we have this added to an agenda? And it's again important to note that maybe for us as individual board members, we couldn't in and of ourselves have something added on, but if there was a majority of us who were saying we wanted something agendized, then it could happen. So I personally did not think that there was anything wrong with how board member Benavides advocated for something to be agendized and discussed at a future meeting.
So quick question, on your agenda, do you have a place where you ask for future agenda items?
During board comments, which was when she made the comment.
That's
just
when
for-
you ask for things that you want to see placed on the agenda?
And just for clarification, I spoke to Mr. Ortega prior to the meeting, and he was okay with it. So just.
That was next, but go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
she started talking. I
Yeah.
didn't want to
Go
cut
ahead,
her
go ahead,
off.
go
I'm
ahead. No, no,
sorry.
go ahead. Finish.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, Trustee Ramos.
Yeah, so I was here, I wasn't absent, but what I recall from that meeting, again, and I'm not going to use the excuse that I'm used, so I'm still trying to understand the dynamic, but I do recall that when board member Benavides started talking and responded to that, it dragged on before the president interfered. And I think that it was with the sign from Superintendent Ortega. So I think that kind of led it to, okay, well, why wasn't it nipped in the bud right away? That's what I recall from that. And so that might have been part of what made it bigger than it should have been.
Mhm.
I mean, the conflict should have never been there. But my feeling was that, it's like someone's running, all of a sudden stop, right? I mean, it wasn't like when she started speaking, she was trying to, it was like after, I think Superintendent Ortega was like making signs like, and a couple of us were looking at each other like, I was like, what's going on here? And then it was brought to her attention. And then board member Benavides continued, and that's what kind of drew the conflict. But from my recollection, if it would have been stopped as soon as board member Benavides would have made a comment about that particular topic, then I think it would have been resolved. It would have been more cut and dry, if you will.
And quicker and smoother. Okay, so we have Trustee Rodriguez Pena and then board president.
So, and again, I felt as a board member that she's asking me to reconsider, taking into consideration to, give the gentleman what he was asking for and so forth. So it's like she's asking me to vote yes on, and that's another thing. See, again, we never voted yet. That was not even in the agenda. Was not agenda, so we should not have anyways. But I'm feeling that she's telling me to agree with the person to vote. But again, we talked about it's the way, because right when the board president said, we do not. She kept talking and talking and talking. It should just stop right there, and then it wouldn't have went further. That's what happened. It went further, and it went, and then when it's even after the meeting when we left, it kept going. I could hear him arguing, but it just kept going. See, if they would have snipped it at the bud and then stopped it immediately, because we do not. It says right here that respond. That may have just let it go, but it just kept going.
So one thing before I let you comment, Board President, one thing that all of you have to understand, because 3 of you have sat in that chair, you have to respect the gavel.
Yeah.
No matter what. If that gavel is hit and is cut off, you cut it off.
Mhm.
All of you are going to be, those of you who haven't been in that chair will be in that chair one day, and you will understand why and the importance of it.
Mhm.
So that's one thing, you have to respect the gavel. Board President?
Just as you're saying, respect the gavel. I did not want to be rude to Board Member Benavides. I had asked her once, I asked her twice, I asked her 3 times. I shouldn't have to, as a president, have to ask one of my board members to reconsider what they're saying at that time. If she wanted to agendize this in a future meeting, there is an email where she can let me know where I can go ahead and put this on the agenda. Absolutely.
Or she can ask during her board comments,
Absolutely.
right?
But that was not the case. One thing is an ask and say, I would board president, I would like to I would like to put this on the agenda to discuss this further. I even said in my comments, Board Member Benavides, can we talk about this at another time? I even suggested to her, can we please basically can we talk? We cannot talk about this right now. And one of the things that you just said right now, when the gavel, I did not want to be disrespectful to her, and that's why I kind of let her go for a little bit, because I thought, you know what, she's going to catch on. She's been here for 3 years. She's not a new board member. She should know this. Apparently she didn't. And apparently she took offense when I tried to bring back and redirect the board meeting, which is my job as a board president. Anybody who sits here, if anybody starts going off topic, starts going off in a different way, we have to set the board back into direction. And at that moment, when I had to sit there and ask her 3 times, I was not trying to be rude. I was trying to bring her back. And I think what really just, broke just everything was at the end, where she just stood up, bad-mouthed me and stormed out. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? And I looked around and I was like, that was uncalled for. We're adults here. One of our things that, in our board meeting norms is, right, we disagree agreeably. She may not have agreed with me that the way that I stopped her. I didn't know how else to stop her other than to hit the gravel and tell her, stop talking. I didn't know how else not to be disrespectful, and I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. So with that being said, I think it's important that training does happen, to individuals who are not here on the president's role prior to coming to be president on this dais. Because if you don't understand what the president, there's so much going on as president, so much. You're following this, you're doing this, you're doing this. And we, as presidents, when we sit here, it's important that our board has our back. And at that night, I did not feel that board member Benavides had my back. On the other hand, she did not know that behind that agenda item that she wanted to bring forth. If she would have had a conversation with me prior to the meeting, we could have had a discussion. We could have said, you know what, let's go ahead, not this meeting, but maybe we can agendize this next meeting. Absolutely. But because of the lack of communication, another thing that I wanted to bring up was that when we went to go speak at superintendent's office, she said that I blindsided her. You called me right before the meeting and you asked me to be president and you blindsided me. That's the role of a vice president when the president is
I'm
absent.
sorry. Is this a different topic?
It is.
Okay.
But yeah.
It
But
happened the same day.
it happened the same day. Where in the heat of the moment, she brings this up where I had no clue that she felt this way, where she's telling me that I blindsided her because of the impact of my job at times does require that, it's a life or death. Where now, to your answer to the other questions, I work from home now on Tuesdays to make sure that I am here. And because it does become a problem if I'm in the office. So that's that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Number one, have the two of you resolved this? Have you had a calm conversation about the policy or the protocol?
No, we haven't after that meeting.
Okay, so then there's probably, I'm making an assumption here, forgive me if it's wrong, but there's probably still a little tension.
Absolutely. Yes.
Which isn't a positive thing for a working environment.
Absolutely not.
My second question would be, has the protocol been explained, the Brown Act been explained, the reason why? Did anybody explain to you why you couldn't make that statement or that request?
First of all, I thought it was resolved that night because we went into Superintendent Ortega's office to talk about it. She asked me to talk, so I said no at first. And then then I said, okay, after we reconvened after closed session, and then we went back in there and we spoke about it, and I thought it was resolved. I don't have any bad feelings about it. I know that with respect to public, to comment, right, to get something agendized, I had spoken to Mr. Ortega and he gave me the green light. Now, if there is something where I should talk to the board president, I believe there is, right? I thought that Mr. Ortega would be communicating that. And I think from what I recall, we spoke about that among all three of us in that meeting. So as far as I know, this has been resolved. I don't harbor any feelings about it. I do want to point something out for clarification, is that, and I respect the board president, whether it's this board, city council, any board. But I also feel that as a board president, or just as a board member, right? Or a professional, that we have to make sure that how we react and how we talk to people, we have to look at our body language. And we have to make sure, because one of the things that happens is body language says a lot. And I don't appreciate when I'm being told versus I'm requesting, can you please, let's talk about this. That's not, I don't need a mother on this board. And I made that very clear that night. And I just don't. I'm here because I'm here to do a job. I'm here to honor the board policies. And the minute what happened that day is when we started closed session, and I'm gonna bring this up since we're, you know, full disclosure here. When we were
No, be careful
no,
about
no.
you can't
No, it's
disclose
just,
closed
no,
session
it's nothing.
information.
I'm not disclosing
Okay.
information. I'm disclosing body language I saw towards another board member, and I thought, it's this kind of thing. Stop right there. Don't, you know, I just thought we have a new board member, and it really bothered me that when I saw that being displayed, I thought we need to respect each other, and board member Ramos is new. And it just bothered me that day. I don't know if you recall, because that's not recorded, but I was like, wow, you know, just because of the body language there. And then we come back to our board meeting in public session, and I'm thinking, I thought I had cleared it with Mr. Ortega. And so I was confused during the comment when President Ariana was making the comments about stop right there. And I was looking at Mr. Ortega for direction, and he had like that, what do they call that? The
Deer in
yeah.
headlights, deer.
And if I'm wrong, please correct me. But, you know, I was waiting for him, because typically and most often people refer to Mr. Ortega for clarification, right? So that's what I was doing. And I wasn't getting anything in response. So it just kind of continued. I thought, okay, so what do I do here? But I was requesting it to be agendized. Board Member Greer is correct.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure that we hear from everybody who wants to speak on this without like just rehashing this over and over again, but trying to find a resolution to move forward. So Board President, you had another comment, then Trustee
Yeah,
Rodriguez Pena.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
No, I was just gonna say shortly also that, again, I think the situation was out of control because of the length of time, but I think that it was maybe misunderstanding. I'm not sure board president, board member Benavides, you know, because it stopped when I said, you're asking for a, you know, she goes, yeah, that's what I'm asking for. And I said, oh, okay. So remember, I said that to her. And that's when it stopped. Okay, so you're asking for, and she said, yes, that's what I'm asking for. And that's how we cleared it, you know, because maybe I think maybe she wasn't sure how to ask it for what, right, to be
Okay.
agendized. And I think it could have been a misunderstanding, right? It just got out of control. And I think because the tone, and I'm talking about both of them, okay, I'm going to say this. The tone, the body language, I think that kind of got out of control.
On both sides?
Yeah, and
I
I'm
see
gonna say
nods.
it just kind of just got like that, you know, because I just walked out, I just heard them arguing, but I just like, and again, we never had a situation like that before, and you know, we usually are very respectful of each other and so forth, and I actually surprised because that was the only time really, and I'm not sure. I know she kept talking about Mr. Ortega. I'm not sure what their discussion was either, so I'm not sure if she understood what he wanted to say. I don't know.
Okay. Board President?
Yeah, just to ask for clarification, basically, not once was I rude. If you go back in the video, and when we went to closed session, I just said, hey, would it be okay if we spoke after? And her response was, no, I don't have time. I'm leaving right after. Okay. You know, I said, okay. All I said is, okay, okay. And if I put my hand up, was to say, okay. It was not to shut you up. I just said, okay, I really wanted to handle this in a situation where we're both adults and we're both respectfully speaking to each other. Not once was I disrespectful. Okay. I don't know what you saw. I was, if you see when she got up at the end and she was like, I'm not, you know, she started yelling at me. I stayed quiet. Not once did I respond to her. Not once did I say anything to her. I just said, okay. And she was yelling, walking across. Cabinet was here. Everybody was here. And I said, oh, sorry. One absent board member was not here. Yes. But just and it's not that I wanted to defend myself. I take responsibility in what I've done and what I do. I think I've proven that to the board. But the thing that I'm not okay with, and I want to be able to say publicly right now, is that, you know, when board member Benavides said, well, I thought we hashed it out. I thought it, with the superintendent, I have asked her plenty of times, hey, I've texted you, hey, you're my vice president. Can I rely on you? I can't rely on her. Meaning that at this year for myself has been a very, very hard year. Not only in my career, but with my mother. I lost my mother.
Yes, I recall.
Many times I did not mean to, you know, however you said that I was, you know, that I came to blindside you. Not once would I ever think about blindsiding any of my colleagues. Ever. If I ask for help last minute is because I'm drowning and I need help. I need help leading this board. And as vice president, I asked with full humility. And if you couldn't do it, it would be okay, because guess what? We have a clerk. And if the clerk couldn't do it, guess what? We have somebody else. But that statement of me blindsiding you, we have no communication. The role of the president or the vice president is to have full communication. Hey, you know what? Many times I text you, did not text me back. Hey, I'm going to be out. Hey, superintendent, she's not responding. What do I do? It's been an hour. I'm in a crisis right here at work. I need help. And I let her know, you know, the thing is right here, I think is so important, is there's a lack of communication and trust.
So then my question to both of you is, how do you repair that? I know board rotations are coming up. You still have to get through the November meeting and then the beginning of the December meeting as board president. You have to take that gavel at the December meeting. If you use a rotation process, use a rotation process. So you're going to have to rely on her to tell you, hey, this is you, the two of you are going to have to work together for that December meeting. And you should be working together for the November meeting so that you know what your role is and how to take that gavel come December. So how are the two of you going to get past this in order to be able to work effectively together for the next two meetings?
I would like a public apology, since publicly she disrespected me in front of cabinet and in front of the board.
That's a question you have to pose to her. I cannot make anyone apologize.
I would like a public apology.
I'm not sure what I did wrong, but my apologies, and I hope that makes you feel better.
I'm sorry, that apology was not accountable. I'm sorry, hold on, let me finish. The fact that you yelled at me after the meeting, and the fact that you're not taking responsibility for that. I'm sorry.
Are you finished?
No.
Okay. I did take responsibility that night in the meeting with Mr. Ortega. I apologized that night as well. Now, I apologize again. I'm making it public here.
What are you
I
apologizing?
don't harbor any ill feelings about this. I thought we had moved on. I'm kind of at a loss here. So that's how I feel. I don't harbor any bad feelings. I thought we were working together. I already spoke to Mr. Ortega about taking the gavel. We met. Now, I didn't even know until now if there's if Mr. Ortega would have told me, Sandra, you need to speak with Gabby, then I would have done that sooner. If that's the case, if that's the policy and procedure, then I don't have a problem doing that. As far as I know, I thought I apologized that night when we met after closed session. I'm just trying, I'm at a loss here. I'm trying to figure out how to make it better. I feel okay.
Honestly, I think the two of you need to have a conversation offline. I really do. Board president, you know, I've worked with this board for quite some time, and that's always been my advice when the board has had any kind of conflict or turmoil, that the best way to resolve it is to have a conversation just between the two individuals or three individuals or whoever was involved to resolve it. And that is the point where I think the two of you are at, because understand you do have to work together for the next two meetings to make the transition. And you need to be prepared for that. And you need to be able to do so effectively and efficiently. And you need to do that while respecting one another. So the two of you need to sit down and have a conversation about how to move forward. If you're not comfortable having that conversation on your own, I would suggest that you talk to Superintendent Ortega to maybe sit in on that conversation while it happens. But it has to happen, because remember, as we move forward, like I said, you guys have to transition. You have to make sure that everything flows well. You're going to need, you know, guidance on, you know, what's on the agenda, be at the agenda building, all of that. So the two of you are going to see each other a lot over these next 2 months. So it has to be addressed, and then apologies have to be accepted and move forward. And I would say that on both sides. I don't know. I will now go back and watch the video so I can see it for myself. Not that it matters, but just to see it for myself. But from what I'm hearing from everyone, it sounds like there was some misunderstandings, and there was some work being done to prevent a Brown Act violation. And that's important. So, and one of the other things, just as a side note, is that I would strongly encourage that you participate in one of the board president's workshops, because it is a lot. I know that you filled in before, but you're going to be doing it for a year. So you need to have some work on, you know, these types of situations, so you know what can and cannot be done. You want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of the role, and not somebody just giving you a gavel and saying, okay, leave the meeting. So I would strongly encourage training as well. But for that, did you still want to say
I was gonna
something?
say just real quick. I think like what Board Member Grill mentioned regarding like when is the right time. I think just a suggestion to the superintendent to highlight, because he does put it on there. If there's any disagreement, you know, see me or see the board president. So it's not boiling up for a whole year. That's what it seems like. You know, it's been a whole year, and they thought, you know, Board Member Benavides thought it was taken care of, and Board Member Ariana doesn't feel, and you know what I'm saying? So it would have cleared the air from this whole year, and here we are today, you know, wasting none of their, I'm not wasting, I
Page
shouldn't say
8,
that.
page 8 of your board handbook. Page 8, item number 3. How does a board member request that an
Right.
item be agendized on a board meeting?
Mhm.
Board members should submit a request to the board president and/or superintendent to be added to the next feasible board meeting. When can a board member request that something be on a future agenda? Board members may request that an issue be agendized by making a request to the board president or superintendent prior to a board meeting and/or at a board meeting. The item will be placed for discussion at a subsequent board meeting, and staff will prepare an appropriate background.
And that's exactly what I was doing. I
Well,
was
And then it's funny because number 5 says, what should I do in the event of conflict among governance team members?
Yeah.
If at any time
Okay.
there is a concern, you should contact the board president and or superintendent to work on resolving the issue prior to the next board meeting.
See, so that, I think that should have been done. I mean, this has been 5 months ago that this situation happened in May.
So then my recommendation, this is your board handbook, your governance handbook. You need to do number 5.
And one of the things I did when, after the meeting, I think it was the next day, or I don't recall, I got to look back at my text message, but I have a text message of that particular policy, that board policy you just read, and I sent it to Mr. Ortega. Because it's a, or during a board, during the meeting, during the comment.
Okay. I don't know if board president was up. Okay, trustee Greer.
I'm recognizing it. Well, it may not be done, but recognizing that we have spent a lot of time talking about like what had happened, and there's need for offline conversation, whether it's the 2 or the 3. And I think it was Yolanda who said, like, from your perspective, again, having not been there, from my perspective, I saw some intensity on both sides that seemed a bit heightened, and more so than it should have been. And then on from just what I saw, and I wasn't here, so
Not
just
to
from a
butt
public.
in, but being here, seeing, standing up and so forth, which you couldn't see from
I
the
didn't see any of
camera.
that.
I'm just saying that. So that's what I see.
Sure.
So it's a different view. You
Right.
heard what I seen
Right.
and heard.
But what I'm speaking is from the perspective of outsiders who are looking in. So
Yes.
being somebody who was on the outside
Yes.
looking in, even without the other details, I even saw, like, what I heard you say is, being here, you saw some intensity on both sides. And
Mhm.
I'm simply saying, having not been here and just
Yeah.
looked at what was broadcasted,
Right.
I saw some intensity on both sides. As we though look to go forward, here's I think there's 2 things that I see. One, want to just reiterate, based off of the policy that you just read, or the board protocol that you just read, just because someone comes and says something from the microphone, it does not mean that once someone says something, then no word can be spoken about that thing whatsoever in a meeting. Otherwise, it's a violation. If there have been situations where people have come and complained, there's no air conditioner, there's no, what's up with the ACs not working, and we've had a line of folks coming and saying things, and we have said, superintendent, can we get an update, or can we have a meeting, or can we discuss, or can we see what's going on with the air conditioners? It would be inappropriate for us to weigh in on and take action. That would be highly inappropriate. But to direct things in such a way where it's an appeal or a request to take things for a future board meeting, whether it was in the past or into the future, I see absolutely nothing wrong with that. Where I think there is issue, and this is the second piece, is when the person who's chairing the meeting is chairing the meeting, and there could have been some misunderstanding or miscommunication. I would say that in that moment, it's best to yield to the board president, unless, I mean, I don't know, something is happening that is so wildly egregious, and I don't think that it was raised to that point. Maybe a bit intense, but it wasn't raised to the point. I think that an appropriate response would be to yield, and then to take this up after the fact, or to bring clarity. And so where I do think that there was some things became unnecessarily heightened was at the point when the board president asked for it to stop. I think that there might have been some misunderstanding of what was going on, but to then belabor that and kind of take that out back and forth, it makes it larger than it needs to, as opposed to saying, I don't think you understand me, or I think there's another side of this that you're not seeing, but I'm not going to hash this out right here publicly in front of everyone. So I'm therefore going to yield, and we need to have a larger conversation about this in the future.
Thank you, and thank you for the perspective of somebody who wasn't present, that watched and saw what was happening. That's much appreciated. So to move forward, trustee
Again, I mean,
Rodriguez.
every time someone says something, if something triggers me, I'm sorry, but I think there's a difference if you're telling me that you need to fix my air condition, then someone's telling me that, can you consider that we should do A, B, or C? We will take a vote maybe on the situation. That's the difference between fixing their, yes, sir. So, because I'm saying she's telling me to vote on it. If it comes to the agenda, we have to vote on it. She's telling me to consider voting on it. That's different than fixing an air conditioner or emptying my trash can. I don't know.
I go back to your governance handbook.
Yes.
Your governance handbook,
Mhm.
page 8, numbers 3 and 4, how to place an item on the agenda.
Right.
So we have to make sure this is a book that this board worked on, you know, and came to agreements with, and it needs to be followed. The protocols need to be followed. Board president, and then if it's okay,
I'm done.
I think we should move on, but I do again recommend that the two of you have to have a conversation. And one of the things that I left on your seat is this crucial conversations for leaders and teams. I was sharing with Trustee Rodriguez Pena when I first got here that I was reading the book Crucial Conversations, and it has a lot of good information in there. And I just took some of the things out of that book to share with this governance team, and I'll share it with others as well, because I think that it could be beneficial for situations like this. Board President?
Not being on this seat before where others have been president before and they have asked me to stop speaking, I've yelled, I've stopped. Why? Out of respect. I am not here bringing this up for, as board member Benavides. I thought we hashed it. I just want to make sure this is not personal. This is making sure that we understand protocol and that we understand when we are going to say, hey, the air conditioning, hey, can we do a follow-up? That's it. Hey, it would be great if we could do a brand, and start going on and on is not acceptable. I just want to make sure that we all understand that, including myself, that we here on the dais, if we would like to bring an agenda item, we say, board president, we would like to bring an agenda item in the future board meeting. Just like board member Rodriguez Pena said, not say in words, I would encourage all my board, my colleagues to think about this and, and make sure that you guys are okay with it. You're swaying the board. And that is what I'm not okay with. Not the person. This is not personal. This is about the behavior that was displayed. The fact that, yes, we did talk about it. The fact that right now, when I asked her to please take accountability, she did not say, yes, I was rude to you. Yes, I did yell at you. Yes, I did. That's okay. That's a conversation we probably need to have. And I will watch the video again. I will commit myself to be able to watch the video, and I will take responsibility for how I did not intervene right away. That's a lesson learned. You're right. As the board president, we need to make sure that we keep our board directed to the agenda and stop other board members and say, please stop speaking on that matter, and that the board member understands that we need to stop speaking on that matter.
One other thing that I want to call to your attention is, and as your board president, that all of us, well, I know the three of you have all been board president for the first time at some point in your tenure on this board.
Yes.
So there's going to be things that we don't know or we're unsure about. Do not hesitate to look at your superintendent for guidance, or to say, one moment, please, and say, Superintendent Ortega, is this okay? Can we move forward with this? It's better to err on the side of caution and look at your superintendent for guidance than to make a mistake and possibly violate the Brown Act. As you're coming up on president, that's something to think about. And again, I also still encourage you to receive training hopefully before or shortly thereafter that happens. So Superintendent Ortega, I'm going to put you on the spot again, as I love to do. Would you be willing to facilitate a conversation between the two of them? So there you have it. So I suggest the three of you get together. You have 2 big months coming up. Please keep this board moving forward in the direction that it has been. Keep this board moving forward and focused on student success and achievement. Resolve this and let this go on, move forward. Okay? Thank you. But I appreciate the conversation. I think that it needed to be said, and you know, that's what these workshops are for. So I do appreciate the conversation that was had about this and the input from the trustees, the other trustees as well. And my hope is that this can be easily discussed respectfully and resolved quickly. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move through some of these a little bit faster than others, just because I want to make sure that I get you out of here on your allotted time schedule. And again, I do appreciate the conversation, because this is the time and the place. So again, thank you. So number 16, we're not going to beat this one down. Board members demonstrate they understand other perspectives. Again, I would refer you to take a read of this, because that's what this talks about. Because remember, crucial conversations mean, you know, that we understand that opinions vary. We understand that emotions will run strong sometimes, and that we understand that the stakes are high for the work that we do. There's a lot of kids out there dependent on this board and dependent on you to make decisions together as a team and get it right, and work together as a team to keep the district running efficiently and effectively. So keep that in mind, please. Number 17, board members usually discuss questions about agenda items with superintendent prior to board meeting. I'm just going to go to the superintendent on this. Is that happening, and are we good on that one? Because I think it was split.
Yes, every time there's a board meeting, I reach out to board members, and they'll call me with questions or clarifications or input prior to the board meeting.
Thank you. There's 2 of you who said often. Is there a question, something you don't understand with the process? Because that one should have been a 5-0. You have a protocol about it, and the superintendent, I know that he calls people regularly before the board meetings to ask if there's questions about the agenda. So if you're not responding to him, please respond. If you have questions, the only way you can get them answered is to talk to him before the meeting. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Number 18, the board governs within board adopted policies, bylaws, and protocols to manage board operations. All of you should be reading your board bylaws, and that's why I gave you a copy of it. If you want to read more than just the 9,000s, which pertain to the board, that's the 9,000s. If you want to read more than that, you have Gamut. So you can go on to Gamut and you can read all the board policies until your heart is content. But it's your responsibility as a trustee to understand at least the 9,000s and what the board protocols are, the board bylaws are. So are there any questions, thoughts on this one? Because there's no reason to say I didn't know. Because if you're unsure, always go to the 9,000s. And if you don't see it there, call your superintendent. 19, board members receive timely information. You all agreed that you do that. Thank you, Superintendent Ortega. Board members receive adequate information. 4 of you said almost always, 1 said often. Is there anybody who has a question about not receiving adequate information? Or feel you don't receive adequate information all the time? If you don't remember, again, what Superintendent Ortega just said, he reaches out to you prior to board meetings. That's your time to ask questions. If you feel you don't have adequate information to be able to vote on an agenda item, you need to make sure that you schedule time to speak with him prior to the board meeting. Please don't run in the night of the board meeting and say, hey, can we talk about this that's on the agenda? It's your responsibility to review the agenda once it comes out, to look at it, see if you have any questions, and then speak with the superintendent. I know sometimes, life happens and you're like maybe only looking at it the day before or something, but still try to speak with the superintendent prior to, because on the night of the board meeting, he's just as busy as you, the board, are in preparing him to be ready. And I know he still gives calls when he has time, but it's your job to be ready. All board members receive the same information. That one is good. Everybody said that they do. Thank you, Superintendent. Number 22, board members follow agreements about how to request clarifying or additional information about agenda items. I was super happy to see that everybody agreed on that. So that's always a plus, and that again reflects on the work of the superintendent and his cabinet. Number 23, board members follow agreements on how to bring up new ideas. And what is your ideas? It says ideas, and this is one of those ones that I think needs to be changed. I think it needs to say agenda items instead of ideas. So it's kind of hard to understand exactly what they're talking about. I know that we've addressed a little bit about when you hear about something, some new program, some great thing, and you talk to the superintendent about it. And is there anything else? Was it just a wording thing that maybe?
I think this and the next question. So what number is this?
That was 23.
So I think, yeah, 23 and 24. And for that matter, 31 are all around this same issue that we just spent the previous amount of time talking about, and don't want to necessarily continue. I don't feel as though there is clarity and agreement on this. Doesn't mean we have to do it now, but I don't think there's clarity and agreement because I think that there is a strong, we view how the situation was brought up in different ways. I don't think that there was anything wrong. Other board members think that there was something wrong with that, and so I'm not sure how we address this.
Well, on number 24, board members follow agreements on how concerns from the community will be handled. I will refer you in your governance handbook to page 6, handling concerns. It's a very clear protocol there. Board and superintendent are committed to having parents and or staff concerns handled at the lowest level in the organization where those involved in the issue can resolve the matter. So number one, if somebody has a problem at their school site, you refer them to the principal.
Again, I think that those 3 issues are not about that. I know when I was answering that question,
you read it, you took it
I'm reading it as
way.
recognizing that there had just recently been a situation where there was community input on a board meeting and there is not agreement on how that is handled. So again, I think that these 3 issues, what is it, 23, 24, and 31, I believe are all still situated around that same issue that we just discussed.
See, I read this one as more like when you're out and about in the community. But thank you for that perspective, because you see I'm taking notes. Board President. And then I'm sorry, Trustee Ramos, I didn't see your hand first.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I just want to piggyback off. I think those 20, was it 23, 24, and 31 are definitely, how we agree on agenda items to be brought up. I really want to emphasize that there's nothing wrong with bringing up agenda items. We as board members have 20% of that, but how it is handled.
This one wasn't, I'm sorry to interrupt. This one wasn't agenda items. This one was just ideas or how to handle community concerns.
Right. So to that, like, again, somebody comes up, a community member comes up, how we handle it, right, determines so much on how we as a board collectively can be collaboratively. So in a sense where, again, I want to again say there has been a year of work and I'm going to say to that particular comment of that individual, there has been a year work on policies, on things that we were bringing forth, protocol, where if board members speak to the superintendent and say, hey, you know what, this is what we would like to, has there any work been done with this? Superintendent knows, in this case, myself, I'm the one that brought it, and I wasn't president. I can't remember who was president, where we handled a community concern, which was this exact same thing. And I suggested, can we put it on the agenda item? Yes, the board agreed. We put it on the agenda item. We changed the wording of the policy. So there's a protocol to all of this. And I don't think that our new board members, including, board member Rodriguez, Ramos, and board member Benavides, right, had any idea that this was going behind closed doors. So I guess not behind closed doors, because we as a board publicly modified the board policy to kind of tailor it to what the asking of the community was. And so therefore, absolutely, there is we need to agree on how to handle agenda items. We need to agree how concerns from the community will be handled.
Again, this one is just focused on concerns from the community. We talked about the agenda item one as well. This one specifically says concerns from the community.
But I hear you saying what the intent of this wording is, but my sense is, regardless of what the intent behind what was asked, if we're looking at the responses, I imagine, please someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that people responded not with that intent, but with the other intent. So if we were to now take on the original intent of the question, that's almost maybe we could ask that question for the first time here, but I don't know that's not how the question was perceived. And so when we're looking at the responses, it's not relevant to the original.
And that's why I asked, yeah. But because there is, when it comes to handling concerns from the community, that's why I referred you to the governance handbook on that one, because on page 6, it says clearly handling concerns, and it gives you 3 things that you're supposed to do for the community. But I'm sorry.
So I think it's kind of related to all this we're talking about, whether it's an idea, an agenda item, etc. My question is, because I know that it says you address it with the superintendent or the board president, right? But as I'm thinking about that, if I mention something to Superintendent Arturo, is the expectation that he's going to mention it to the president? If something that I want to agenda, put it on the agenda for a future meeting, right? So should it be both, or because I know that it reads one or the other, right? But then how is the board president going to be engaged in that? And so I guess because that, I think, can also lead to a misunderstanding, which it sounds like the situation that happened had a little bit of that, right? So, and for me personally, I mean, I've talked more to superintendent than to the president for whatever reason. There's no particular reason why. I mean, I just,
Right.
But I mean, for me, I don't mind who I communicated with, but I think that can also lead to, again, this misunderstanding that we're all talking about.
The way that it's worded in your governance handbook, it looks like you can talk to the superintendent or the board president.
Right.
So you're fine with talking to Superintendent Ortega about future agenda items?
No, I understand that, but my point is, I can see how it can lead to the situation that happened, right? Because as board member Benavides mentioned that she had discussed whatever
I
issue,
see what you're saying.
right? So, I mean, I don't know if there's any more clarification on that, or if that can be changed or to avoid something like that. But anyways, I was just kind of thinking about that. It's like,
so then we need to make sure that the superintendent and the board president are communicating about it, and that the understanding of what's being requested to put on the board future agenda is clear between the two of them, first of all, so that they can make sure that Trustee Ramos called me and said he wants to have blah, blah, blah on the agenda item. The superintendent and board president should be discussing that. between the two of them. So it doesn't just show up and it's like, well, why is this here? Oh yeah, Trustee Ramos called
Yeah,
me.
yeah. I mean, I just think it would help the situation. I don't want to create more work for, if I tell him and he has to go tell her or vice versa, right? But I think it'll lend
He has to
itself
tell him or her, whoever's in the
Yeah.
board president seat anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that whatever way is easy. The other thing you can do is you can always, even if you verbally tell the superintendent, you can always still send an email to the superintendent and CC the board president. You're okay to do that.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, per our
Following up from
earlier
our- yeah.
conversation, just a reminder, this is something I want to talk about, putting on the agenda.
Yeah.
And that way there's a paper trail as well.
You cover your bases.
Board president.
Yes, one of the things that the superintendent unofficially said that night was, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, board president, I should have told you. And, it's an honest mistake. He's like, I did not know she was going to continue to speak about it, that she, it was just. And so one of the things that I think it's important for all of us at this moment right now, since we're publicly and openly speaking about this, is that we would, if with the agreement of all my colleagues, that it would be appropriate for our superintendent, if someone wants to agendize something, to speak to the president about it prior. Because it's going to be on the agenda, and the president and the superintendent are the ones who go over the agenda before it is publicized.
Well, keep in mind that there may be something that comes up at the board meeting that then somebody says, hey, I would like to see us discuss this on the agenda. So everybody still has their right during their board comments to request that something be put on the agenda at the meeting, or to in advance, or outside of the meeting, to communicate that with the board president and or superintendent.
That's what I'm referring to. Not
And-
not here. Of course, here we have public comment, and we have that freedom to go ahead and do that as board members. But I'm saying if the board, if a board member contacts the superintendent, if we could have the superintendent communicate with whoever is here on the dais as president, so they are also not blindsided. For the night.
Yeah, so that's not an issue, right? I mean, for you to be able to do that. So, trustee
I'm sorry,
Gray.
I'm sorry
Oh,
to interrupt, but I've been
trustee
having my
Rodriguez,
hand
yeah.
risen.
I'm
for the
sorry,
board
I
president.
didn't see
Just
your little hand.
to let
You
I'm
gotta
like
raise it
this.
higher.
Here she is again. Okay, so what I want to say, I'm not sure if you're on 23 or you're on 24, but on 23, agenda items, we have a protocol, and again, superintendent does post
Wait,
that.
number
He
23?
does post that.
Number 23 doesn't say agenda items. It says
No,
board
but you
members. I
said
know what
you-
I know
I-
what you
I
said.
did.
Yeah.
wrote
I keep forgetting.
So, that being said, there is a protocol already set. The superintendent does ask us when under our board, on our weekly board packet, he puts, protocols. What we need more, I don't know, we all read them, and I'm gonna say this, I haven't told the superintendent, because I don't think the board members read them. I may be wrong, because sometimes they're asking the same questions that he just wrote. I hear that. And the same thing with the community. It says right there, black and white,
Right.
you need to contact, and that's exactly what we do. And on the agenda items, if board member Ramos goes to superintendent, and I'm sure I was board president before, when you go over the agenda, I'm sure he's gonna tell whoever the president is, board member Ramos has asked for this to be placed on the agenda. So the board president is gonna know. Because you're setting the
Well,
agenda, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So
But
I'm very
I
confused
think
how
that
the
this
whole
was
conversation
I think that this, and superintendent, feel free to jump in. I think that this was an
Jump in,
offline
Arturo.
conversation that took place right prior to the board meeting. I'm not sure how far in advance, but prior to the board meeting, an offline conversation about, hey, I'm hearing this in the community and I want to bring this up. And if somebody's asking to put something on the agenda and I'm the superintendent, I'm going to take the request. But if it's the night of a board meeting or the day before a board meeting, I'm also going to tell them you also have the right to, during your public comments, put it on there. And feel free to jump in at any point.
Sure. I think the distinction here is, and again, I will beg Vice President Benavides to make sure we're on the same page on this. The request was not, Arturo, can you please put this on the agenda? That was not the request. The request was, Arturo, how do I request this to be on the board agenda? And just like our protocols that were read right now by Miss Angelina Pride, I said, there's a section that's called board member comments, reports, and requests. And at that time, you can request that this item be placed on an agenda item. So the request to me was not, can you please put this on the agenda? The request was, how do I ask or request for this to be on the agenda? And so I said, per this, one way you can do this is during your board member comments, reports, and requests, you can request that an agenda item be placed on the agenda, and then it would be up to the president at that point in time to react or say whatever the board president wants to do, but that would be her, that's up to her at that point in time.
So we're clear, Trustee Gray?
Well, yeah, and so that I think is the crux of where some of this happened, because I will say, for example, I'm oftentimes impressed, Board Member Rodriguez Peña, by your level of preparation when it comes to your comments that you make every board meeting. Really, you take the time to think it out, to write it out, and you've already thought out and determined and word for word, so I'm impressed. With that being said, if you right. If you took the time to do that, to write out a request that you had already determined that you wanted to make, and let's imagine that you weren't, because you are the veteran expert that you are, but let's imagine for a moment you weren't, and so because of that, in the midst of confusion, you were to reach out to board member to Superintendent Ortega on just, hey, clarity. If I were to wanting to request, can I do it this way? And if he were to confirm and say yes, you can make that request through that way. If you had already predetermined to make that request on a particular issue, and then if it just so happened that the person who came to make a comment that day, just because that person came and made a comment doesn't mean that you can now not make a request. It wouldn't be the case that just because this person showed up, if you had already predetermined to make a particular request, you wouldn't need to say, well, now because this person spoke on something, I now need to cross this item off, because otherwise it's a violation of the Brown Act. Now, maybe you would say, let me wait and not ask because I don't want it to appear as though I'm responding to this person. And that could be discretion and wisdom. But just because you are saying something that someone else said doesn't necessarily mean that there was some plan or coordination. That was how I perceived the situation, was that there was Ms. Pride, you even said during the thing at some point you can look to the superintendent, and it was a while ago that I watched, but I do believe at some point in the meeting, Board Member Benavides did say, Mr. Ortega, can you please help and clarify here? And then you said, yes, you can make a request. So that's where I'm saying I think that there was where there was confusion is, as an outsider, I perceived a board member requesting that an item be placed on a future agenda. And there is no problem with doing that. Not only is there no problem with doing that, that is the appropriate place and the appropriate one of there are a few appropriate places and channels. And so for you, what I would be nervous about with agreeing and using this as precedent to the position it puts you in is then as soon as someone asks you a question about how do I hypothetically add something, is there now pressure on you that to say to whoever's in the board presidency, hey, I think that Board Member Rodriguez Peña might be thinking about adding a particular item, and then she does or doesn't. We have the ability, when she made a request where it's the board president or the superintendent, that happened during the meeting in real time, where it was an and, where both were formally asked about adding something to the agenda.
For clarification for what you're saying that if they bring up something during public comments, then when you do board comments, you can request that it's on the agenda.
What I'm saying is, if I came in today and I wanted to discuss what are we doing with surplus with bond funds, If I have already predetermined coming in that I want to make a request about bond
Right.
funds, and then someone else, not no court, if someone else comes up
No,
and
I got
decides to make a
that.
comment and says, I think that I'm curious what's going on in our community and why are our schools not this or that. If now moving forward, I am already predetermined that I'm going to make a board request about bond funds, that I'm not responding to
Right,
this person,
but you're still gonna follow protocol and do it at the appropriate time.
which is during board meeting comments and requests during in
Right.
public meeting.
It says here during your where was it? I just read it to you guys.
Questions, comments, and requests.
Yeah, it said a board member should, the presence of a board member should request something to be on future agenda. Board member should request by making a request to the board president or at the board meeting. Actually, it's not specific. The item will be placed for discussion at the subsequent board. It just says board members, I thought it said during the board comments, but it says board members may request that an issue be agendized by making a request to the board president or superintendent prior to a board meeting and or at a board meeting. It does not say during public comment, doing board comments.
I think everyone
But
interprets it that way.
yeah, that it should be done during board comments.
Right.
That's what I just want to make sure is
Right.
that it's done during board comments. I think we need to add that into
Mm-hmm.
here.
And that's what happened at this
Sorry.
meeting.
Yes, I agree with you. Yes, absolutely. Trustee Rodriguez? Peña?
Yes, I'm trying to defend myself against Board Member Greer. What I would like to say is very true. I mean, yes, you do. That is the time. I think it was for Member Benavides was the way she asked. She didn't say, I would like to place it, you can see the video, on the board agenda A, B, or C. She said, I'd like you to consider or reconsider board that we should A, B, or C. You know, so she's asking not to agendize it. She didn't ever use the word agendize in the conversation.
So it's more like,
And
let's
then
just do it.
Yeah, kind of like telling me, right? And then I kind of said, I think what you're
Can't do that.
asking. And then I said, you want to, and then she said, yeah, that's what I'm asking. Okay, so we cleared it. But
Right.
I think it was just the way it was.
Right.
Again, it's
So then
and I mean, we're all learning. I mean,
that's what I was getting ready to say.
I
It's
am a
learning
veteran,
thing.
true, but I was new once, and I'm sure I probably
Exactly.
did the same thing. I sat my first meeting like, what am I doing here? I don't even know what people are
Exactly.
talking about.
So
What you learn as you go on. It's not
right.
a bad thing.
So we've talked
That's
about
all.
this a lot. So you understand the protocol now for putting something on the agenda. And I know that you did talk to Superintendent Ortega in advance of the meeting, which is one of the ways to put something on the agenda. He told you to bring it up, and then like Trustee Greer said, somebody happened to come in and talk about it, so you brought it up. So we're all understanding that that you can only place something on the board, request that something be placed on a future agenda during your board comments. We're clear on that?
Mhm.
Yeah. I want to make sure we're clear because I don't want anybody to leave this meeting and then come back next month and try to put something on the agenda. So you say there's not clarity?
I'll wait. There's another hand.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there is clarity that we can go to the board president or the superintendent prior to a board meeting.
Right.
I think there's clarity that we here during our board comments can actually say, superintendent, I would like to request the
Right.
such and such to be agendized.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
But
But there's a but. You know what so-and-so saying, if so-and-so saying is absolutely true. Number one, we're addressing the commenter.
right, you can't do
You cannot
that.
do that.
Right.
Second, I would like to encourage all my colleagues
you can't do
you
that.
cannot do that.
But that's not a request to put something on the board. That's
Exactly.
just saying, hey, everybody's supposed to.
Correct, and that's
Yeah,
a violation
no.
of the Brown Act.
Mhm.
I don't think that we're negating that any one of us can ask and request to put something on the agenda.
Right.
Absolutely doable.
Right.
I think we're all in agreement in that, correct?
Mhm.
And we now know how to. it's the
So-
it's the little things where we add more to it and more to it and more to it that it becomes a problem.
So in line with this conversation, can I take us to number 25, where the board agrees on the role of the board president in managing the board meetings?
Let's probably to
Okay.
get this one based on the prior one. This one should be blue.
Okay. And again, my apologies. I know I keep saying it, but we had to do this one by hand. So your board bylaw 9121 outlines the responsibilities for the board president. And again, and I'm not saying this just because I'm a representative of CSBA, but anybody who's sitting in that board seat for that board president seat for the very first time, you strongly strongly encouraged to take training prior to. It is not just as easy as it seems when you're watching somebody else do it, and maybe even then it doesn't seem easy. But you'll hear other people bring up questions, comments, things that will help you and guide you when it's your turn to sit in that seat. So to the two new trustees who have never sat in that seat, I would recommend that you take board president training and don't just assume that, hey, I got this. Your superintendent will definitely be there to guide you. Your seasoned trustees will be there to support you. But it's also very good to hear the whole spiel and the whole perspective and to learn the ins and outs and how to handle certain situations. So again, strongly encouraged.
I have a question on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Are the board president workshops just at CSBA?
No, well, that's the first one, because that's usually when most boards are transitioning. So we do one definitely then. I haven't looked at the schedule yet in a while, but you might want to pull it up while we're talking about the other things. But they usually try to do one in January as well. I know they try to do one or two depending upon interest after AEC. So, and AEC, is our annual education conference. I'm just assuming everybody knows what that means. So it's the CSBA Annual Education Conference. That's when they have it. That one is I like that one a lot just because there's so many people from up and down the state that are in that one, where you get to hear a lot of insight about things that could happen and, situations. So.
Are they
Okay.
doing one in Sacramento in December?
There's one at AEC, but I don't know if it's sold
That's
out
same.
or not.
Mm.
Okay, so if you can't get into that one in Sacramento, then February 4th would be the next one. But by then, you've already had to chair two
Yeah.
meetings, and I just encourage you to get it as quickly as possible. So, okay, can we move on?
Mhm.
Yes.
Who's counting?
Trustee Ramos, you're becoming one of my favorites. Okay. Well, this page is looking pretty good, so this one should go pretty fast. Board members come to meetings prepared. Do you agree that all of you are prepared when you arrive at the board meeting? Is there anyone who feels like one of their colleagues or themselves is not prepared when they come to the board meeting?
I may have been the less often. See, the only because I just make that last comment because sometimes I'll hear some of my colleagues ask a question that's already I've seen or I've read. So I'm not sure. I mean, maybe they didn't read it, or did they read it? Did they have time to read it? So I may have wrote that thinking that what I just mentioned, that I hear a lot people asking the same thing that's already here.
Right, that's already been in
Yes,
the
already
packet.
yes.
Gotcha.
So I do, and I'm like, did they just read that? I thought he put that on there, and I do hear that
Yeah,
quite often. I'm gonna say.
yeah, and
Mhm.
that would be a red flag, but also remember there's people like me who are old and then we may have forgotten
I'm older
what
than
we
you, I
read.
know,
So you may want to give them
try
a
to
little
read it.
bit of grace.
I get it.
And Board President,
I would like to also say perhaps sometimes not that the board member's not prepared. maybe perhaps the board member wants the community to know, and that's why they ask the question that's
Well,
already
that's
known.
encouraged,
Yeah,
absolutely,
that's
and thank you
different
for
though.
bringing
That's
that up, that
what I'm
we're,
talking about.
where
Yeah.
board members are encouraged to ask questions so that the public hears it, whether you've asked the question in advance or not. There were still things that I always asked at the meeting so the public could hear that response as well. Yes,
But
trustee.
you know, when I'm going to ask a question, I speak to the superintendent so he is prepared, or
Oh,
if
yeah,
it goes to our CBO or
right,
curriculum, so there,
right.
I don't want him to say I don't know or let me look into it. So I do let him know I'm going to ask about this or I'm going to pull this, so he knows
Yes.
prior, and they were also prepared.
Yeah.
It's not none of these surprise. We don't,
'Cause
no surprise
And that's
rule
what I
is
always
not
tell
good.
people, a surprise. And there's still questions that come up that you didn't think to ask in advance. That's
Right, but
gonna
then the
happen.
one,
But if you know you're gonna ask something in advance, it's nice to give the superintendent a
Yeah.
heads up, because if somebody in the community asked you that question and you only get the answer and you don't see them for another 3 months, they don't get that answer
Yeah.
to that question. But if you ask it here in the meeting, they have the opportunity to go back and look at the
Right.
video if they're not watching at that
Mhm.
time. Absolutely.
yes.
Number 28 should be green. The board effectively uses data in its decision-making process. I know that the superintendent and staff do provide the board with a lot of data
Yeah.
when things come on the agenda that you will be having to take a vote on. Are you satisfied with that? Or two of you said often. Is there a need for additional data that you can think of off the top of your head? Or is it that sometimes you just realize you needed a little more information? You can think about it, and if there is, I encourage you just to ask the superintendent. The board confines its meetings to a reasonable length of time. Everybody says yes. That means your meetings have been ending
Yeah.
in a timely manner. Good. Okay, now I'm taking this personal, trustee Ramos. Matter of fact, I'd like to have a discussion with you after the meeting. Okay, so that's good though, because I remember when your meetings used to go really, really long.
Yes.
Yes, so I'm glad to see that.
Mhm.
There's a good relationship between how long the board spends on an agenda item and the importance of the item. So you guys talk about the items. Does the board president, remember it's the board president's duty to manage the time spent on an item. When you see something like, keep going on and on
Yeah.
and on, there's a time where you have to say, okay,
Mhm.
let's move on. Superintendent will get back to us on blah, 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 or whatever,
Mhm.
and move on. So sometimes you do have to do that. You want to be respectful and let everybody's voice be heard, but to keep, going rehashing the same thing in a board meeting is not cool. The board effectively manages community input at board meetings. Page 7, number 9 in your handbook addresses this. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. So page 7, number 9, in the event of agenda item that draws a large number of attendees, the board president may at their discretion call for a 5-minute recess to allow attendees to exit before the Board of Education proceeds with regular business, and staff will assist in clearing of the room. So this one, I remember when we did the handbook, this was put on just because there was concern about when a large number of people come out for board comments, and making sure that the space was managed and that the board could quickly resume their regular meeting after taking extra board comments. So sometimes that happens, and they didn't want to have to delay the start of the regular meeting. So remember, the board can also limit the number of public comments, or limit the amount of time on an issue, or limit the amount of time if you have an overwhelming amount. So the board plans for development of training. That should be green because you guys always do that. The board effectively orientates new members. Trustee Ramos and Vice President Benavides. Orientation for new trustees, we had a 5-0, so you guys felt like you had good information. Superintendent, staff, you met with them. Good process. Thank you. The board reviews its governance agreements regularly. You guys do this regularly. That's usually when I'm here. So we're good on, you guys are good on that one, where you do take the time to review policies and procedures. 36, the board provides opportunity for community input when developing. Again, you guys have one of the best processes ever. I'm going to keep saying that. So you guys knocked that one out of the ballpark. And I know somebody put not sure because they probably weren't aware of the process, and that's fine. But yeah, they knocked it out of the ballpark. Yeah, that was awesome. You guys adopt long-range priorities. How do you feel about that? The board looking at the priorities for the future. I know it's a 4-1. You guys feel like you're doing a good job with staying ahead of the game and making sure that you have foresight of things that need to be addressed and concerns. And if I'm going too fast, please slow me down. I know Trustee Ramos.
We
will.
want you to hurry.
Number 39, that's a green, right? 39 should be green. The board adopts clear and measurable indicators to assess district performance. This one kind of connects to the superintendent evaluation process, because their success indicators are given by the superintendent, or proof of your success indicators is provided by the superintendent when you determine the superintendent's goals that you're going to evaluate him on. You make a decision like, what does success look like? Because you're not just going to be arbitrary. So if one of the goals is that attendance at, this school is going to increase, you don't just say it's going to increase. You say it's going to increase by this percent or that percent, because otherwise it's arbitrary when you evaluate the superintendent on, did we meet that or not? So you want to use success indicators anytime you make goals to say, this is what we're striving for. So you know how you did, not just the superintendent's performance, but also the support from the board. Any questions, comments on that one? The board adopts fiscally responsible budget aligned to district visions and goals. So you guys have a strong budget. Everybody agrees that you're good. Any questions, comments on that one? The board regularly monitors the district's health, monitors the district's health of the district. See, there we go. I saw another one that we need to fix. So you monitor the fiscal health of your district and overall health of your district. And that one was 5-0. The board has an effective process to review, revise, and adopt policies. You know that this takes place at the board meetings, and usually depending on the policy, if it's new, you'll get 2 readings of it, or do you guys do one?
First reading and an adoption.
So you do have a policy, and that's in your handbook as well. The board establishes priorities for the district's collective bargaining process. You know that when you go through bargaining, that the board does play a role, because you will have to talk to the superintendent and probably assistant soups during closed session to discuss how the process is going, what you're offering, all of that. You'll hear about the counter offers, you'll hear all those good things. So that's your role in the bargaining. And if you've gone through the masters in governance, you know that that's your role when it comes to bargaining. And it's the superintendent's job to make sure, bless you, that you're always informed. The board demonstrates commitment to district priorities and goals. And there's 5-0 there. So I guess the wording on that one was clear, and that you guys do agree that you demonstrate a commitment to the priorities and goals. And that's also in here in your handbook. The board demonstrates support for the superintendent in carrying out board directives. Do you guys support your superintendent most of the time? So the board is represented at key district events. I know that not everybody can be everywhere, like we've discussed today. There's times when people have to work and they have to travel for work, or their kids have an event, and it's hard to be everywhere. But I do know in the past that this has been a board that's really been, out there at the school sites and in the community at events in support of the district and the students and the staff. And is that continuing? Do you guys feel like you're still doing a good job with getting out there when you can? And I know that there's times when you can't, when I was a trustee, summertime was awful for me because that's when I was super duper busy at work. And so I might not make it to, but maybe one thing per month. So, and people will understand that, but they do like to see the board members out there and about. Let's see here. You guys have, let's see. The board, I know you guys celebrate your staff. I've seen you do it when I've come to regular board meetings way at the early time. So I know that you do that. You monitor progress towards district goals based upon established success indicators. This one is kind of redundant of the other one, so I'm writing myself a note here. When you say it out loud, you catch these things versus when you just read it. But you guys were Form 1 as it's green and you were green on the other one. The board monitors progress towards district goals based on oh, you know what? I must have copied and pasted something wrong when I was taking them off of that tool and put it there. My apologies. The board monitors the implementation of the adopted budget. And you guys do that through your board meetings when you get your reports. When your assistant super or your CBO gives reports and updates, when you approve your interim budget, when you approve your regular budget, all those times, that's when you're doing that. The board policies, the monitoring board policies, remember you have gamut. So anytime that you want to look at a board policy, they're there. And anytime board policies change, whether it's something local in your district that changes or something from the state, from the chancellor's office that changes, it goes to your superintendent, and then he makes sure that that feeds through you guys and that it's updated as it should be. Gamut will update it automatically. The board evaluates the performance of the board. Check, you're doing that right now. The board evaluates the performance of the superintendent, and that's a 5-0, which means that you have a good process in place. Is everyone happy with the process that's in place for the superintendent evaluation? Trustee Rodriguez-Peña?
I wanted to bring up regarding, I know the Superintendent Ortega, when I was the board president, and I asked him, how is the process? And he showed me 4 different presidents, how they all did it different. Some verbal, some with one sentence.
4 presidents in your district?
In my this district.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And some 10-page, right? It's different. And board member Greer and board member Robinson, we did superintendent's evaluation. We had to do it like really quick on the iPad. I'm sure I think it's an iPad. But anyways, I would like it to be generic, like every president do it the same way. I don't know, because everyone just does it different, and I don't know why. I don't know.
You guys do you use a tool, a same tool for your superintendent evaluation, or no?
I think to add a little bit more clarity, I think the process is the same, but I think board clerk is talking about the written final evaluation.
Oh, okay.
So not the process itself.
Gotcha.
The process I think is the same for everybody, but at the end, when the superintendent receives their final written evaluation, that's where everybody has done that a different way.
Do you have suggestion?
Well, yes, I would like to do it. I'm not sure where I received the copy that we did when I was board president. I don't know where it came from, but he gave me some examples and I followed. I'm not sure if it was board member Greer's when he did. I don't even remember, right? But I like the way that was done. We wrote just like, how's he doing? Superintendent do, and you're right, the board meets together. No, everyone sends an email to the board president, and he or she writes it up, and then this is what I did, and I brought it to the board. This is, this is what I wrote. This is, and they may say I agree or I disagree, and then we changed it or added to it. Remember, board member Greer? Similar to that, right? And then he did his miracle. I don't know. And then he just whipped something up. He can probably tell you, but I would like it that way because the process is more understanding, and I feel that it's disrespectful. We just write one sentence. Oh, he's doing great. Superintendent works very hard.
Right.
He really does. And I think just to give him one sentence or one page, he takes a long time showing us what he's doing. His goal, the
Right.
goals we give him, right? And then he puts in red, I did A, B, or C. I think in respectful of any superintendent, that we should have a process similar to what we did, board member Greer. That's my recommendation. I don't know, but board member Greer would maybe tell you more because he knows.
So keep in mind that when it comes to the superintendent evaluation, it's a two-way street. So both the board and the superintendent have to agree on the process. They have to both agree on any tool that is used as well. So that is something that you all should discuss. So let's see, we only got about 20 minutes. Just really quickly, one of the easiest ways that I found for superintendent evaluations, because I do those a lot for some of the districts to assist the board, is that when the superintendent gives his report, his self-evaluation to all the board members, if there's a tool that you use and you use that same tool, evaluation tool, every time, then like you said, each member gets that tool sent to them. They rank, they write their comments in. Then like you said, they should all go to the board president. What I suggest is that you just copy and paste everybody's comments onto the tool. You put, like, if it's a tool that says, exceeded, met, or whatever, you just put 3 people said he exceeded, 2 people said he met, and then when you come together, everybody knows without names on it that all of these were the comments that were put under that. 3 people said that he exceeded, 2 people said we met. Let's talk about this. So let's come up with an answer. Did he exceed or did he met? Because it should be one voice.
Yes.
You do not want to give a superintendent, which I was horrified to see recently, where the board gave the superintendent like 4 different scores, and it's like, okay, which one am I?
Yeah, no. This
So
was more
you would
structured.
put, the board would agree, okay, the superintendent exceeded this. After some discussion, they put he exceeded. And then you go through the comments, and some of them are going to be very similar. But then you together during that time is just come up with a voice that says, okay, this is what we want to say about what you did here. And you guys somebody wordsmiths it. And you guys come up with one voice. Okay, we all like that. Yeah, that kind of includes what everybody said. Now to the next question, the next one. And you do it like that. That makes it much easier. It's more clear for the superintendent on where everybody stands and how they feel. And like you said, it's not just being, oh, he's great, he does a good job. He's getting some more feedback because they do spend a lot of time on doing putting all the information together to show you that they've met the goal, or to say, hey, we need more time for this goal, whatever it is. If you guys want some tools, I have plenty. I'm sure you have plenty too. But if you shoot me an email, I can email you like 3 or 4 different tools to show you that you guys could use. But your process is good. It's just, I think that you should just have everybody ranked and put all the comments, and then just come together and have a discussion. And then if everybody does their job and reviews everything in advance, it shouldn't take you that long.
And I'm not the board president, but
no, I'm just
I just
you brought it up, so I was just looking at you. I'm sorry.
If you do we all agree? I mean, I'm just talking, but I maybe some people don't agree with me. I don't know. I don't want to be the only person that's,
yeah, and the superintendent gets to say so too. He may like the current process and say, let's leave it alone.
Likes it, but the board president can speak. I don't want to speak for her.
No, I would agree, Board Member Rodriguez Peña. I think that being able to have a protocol and sequence and to be able for, especially for somebody who's going to be, coming into a role of president and it not only is this position intimidating, but then having to write, a board superintendent evaluation is like, whoa, now I'm up against having to do, this final, and it's time consuming. So
It
I
is
would
time
agree,
consuming, yes.
as a board, if we can, if you can please email me,
Shoot me an email and
us.
remind me.
Yes, I'll definitely do that. So that way we can maybe adopt something for this next year, as we will definitely be reevaluating our superintendent.
And remember, again, he has input too. So if he
Yeah.
doesn't like the process, he doesn't like the tool, he has the right to say, no, I don't like that one. I like this one better because I think it'll give me a better indication of how I'm doing. So either one of you want to shoot me an email and remind
Don't say
me.
I like the
Maybe,
one
matter of fact,
sentence.
if you want to shoot me an email right now, just tell me to send it, then I'll forward them to you in the morning. Okay. The board uses cohesive messages to communicate district priorities, goals, and needs. Do you guys feel like you get the messages of what's going on in the district and with the board out to the community
Mhm.
very well?
Absolutely.
Okay. And the board provides community leadership on educational issues. That was a 5-0. See, Trustee Ramos, I'm about to make you very happy because all the next ones were 5-0.
He's smiling.
The board pursues partnerships to support district efforts. Remember, partnerships are great, but don't commit to anything. Just if you hear about something, let the superintendent know and you guys can talk about it. And then if he thinks it's something that's beneficial to the board, then you guys will agendize it and have a discussion about it, or maybe get a presentation and make a determination if it's a good fit for your district. Advocates on behalf of student and public education at local, state, and federal levels. I know that you guys do that because I know I've seen Trustee Rodriguez Peña at events advocating, and I'm sure that a lot of you advocate locally as well. So remember, advocacy doesn't always have to take place in Sacramento. It can take place down here as well. And the board informs the community on district priorities, progress, needs, and opportunities for involvement. And do you guys make sure that you ask the community to come and get involved and encourage them to come to, hear about things that you're going to discuss at meetings? Yes.
Real quick, I'll say it real fast.
See, now
Trustee Ramos.
No, I'm just teasing.
No, because the superintendent does meet with the city manager, our city manager, monthly, and he does discuss what we're doing here as unified and vice versa. But we also have a 2-by-2 meeting with the board president and myself and the city manager and the mayor and the superintendent, and we also discuss situations that we can work together on, or we need help on, because after all, our children are in the city and their boundaries and vice versa, right? So we have a really good relationship with our
and you have a good partnership also with Citrus College.
Yes, we do. And
So,
APU.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
guys have two
Mhm.
big, two big colleges
We do.
right here,
Mhm.
community and the university.
Yes.
So you guys have a lot of great partnerships.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mhm.
So is there anything, we have a few minutes, is there anything that you feel was not covered from the survey that this is your time and place to bring it up?
You can go first and then I'll go last.
No, the only thing I would add is in regards to superintendent evaluation, just that a protocol that we've had is to have the president and the vice president work on that together. And so I know when we were talking about it, we were just saying the president, but historically it's been the board president and the vice president. And I think that's helpful because it is a lot of work for one person. So it has been helpful when there's a partnership for both people sitting in those two seats.
True. Mhm.
So do you, I know, just taking a poll, are you guys like in agreement that both the president and vice president should be
Mhm.
working on that?
Mhm.
Okay. Anybody have any-
I just wanted to add one thing. I spoke about it at our last board meeting on our resolutions. I'm not sure if this is the place, but our resolutions are always put into the consent calendar. And I would like them to be, I'm not sure where, but out of the consent calendar, because those are usually acknowledging a certain holiday, acknowledging a certain person. And when you just vote on it, no one knows, like we had administration day and we want to be able, to thank them for their hard work and dedication and so forth. Or Indigenous Day, we want to thank the Indigenous community. And it's in the consent calendar. And I don't know, I thought we used to read them out before the resolutions, but we're not reading them out any longer. And I don't know how we can get it out, or if my colleagues agree also. It's not just, this is how I feel.
I'm not sure if there's a particular reason. I know that that's the way the county does them. But I don't see any reason why not to not have them in consent. And then I would just say, I think there are resolutions that make sense that are in like the resolution for the signatures or something like that. Like that doesn't, like that to me makes
Yeah.
sense. That would be in consent, right? But
Yeah.
something like you're saying, use the word celebratory or to honor,
Yes,
to that make them.
acknowledge, so
Yeah,
forth.
I don't see any objection or any reason why not to.
No, I think it's great. Only thing when you brought it up, I thought it was a great idea, and I'm glad that you pulled it. I would say oftentimes there's a lot of really long whereas language that maybe doesn't always make the most sense to just kind of read it out verbatim. But I hear, but if we were to at least take a moment to say, here is a resolution, and this resolution is serving this purpose, and then allowing the board, if they so choose, to speak on it, I think that
Yes.
could be helpful.
That's fine too, I think, because you're still acknowledging.
Where it just says why you're doing this resolution.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
you just say
Word.
you're doing it.
Yes.
So you guys are in agreement?
Absolutely. We could have it at the beginning.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be great.
That's usually what we get.
At the beginning of the board meeting.
Before it's still-
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just wanted to recognize, we have uh, not a comment, but somebody
Yeah. Mr.
suggest,
Trussell.
somebody gave us could you please?
That at our last board meeting,
Mhm.
we had public comment, and he left that for us to set the board, and so we're passing that out to you.
Okay. All right. So this is Mr. Ron Trussell, special education teacher,
Mhm.
and he's speaking on basically the vaccines and Tylenol. And so thank you for giving this to us.
Last thing that I will say to you is, first of all, thank you again for taking the board self-evaluation. I know we had some challenges with people being able to get it done so that we could have a nice, pretty one this year. So thank you for being patient with the one that I had to try to put together with one of our staff members. But I still appreciate that everyone did get the information so that we were able to have this time together to have these discussions that you can't normally have during a regular board meeting or don't want to have during a regular board meeting. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you being present. I know that it is not always easy, so thank you for that. And I appreciate that there was some really good green conversations. They were hard, they were long, but they were aired out. And my hope is that moving forward, that if there's a conflict, that you resolve it right away. Don't let it continue. Just I've said this before, that you talk to people. That's the clearest way to do it. Please look at the sheet that I gave you just for some tips on how to have those conversations. They're not always easy. Feel free to have the superintendent sit in on them. If you'd like like kind of a mediator there, they can help you with that. As you move forward, again, just remember some of the areas that we've had this long discussions about. with that from the board self-evaluation, and just stay focused on those items as you move forward for this next year. And if you have any questions or concerns, you know that you can always email me at any time, and I'm more than happy to answer your emails or your phone calls. So with that, any questions for me? Superintendent, did you have anything else that you wanted to discuss with the board? So we're good?
Okay, we'll go ahead and turn it
Okay.
back over. I would like to thank you, Angela, for always coming prepared and being able to guide our board. I appreciate the positive feedback and the growth that this board has actually had. The new board members may not have experienced it, but we who have been on the board for a little bit have gone through very bumpy roads, and only when we talk about conflict and what we do after the conflict and how we resolve it will only strengthen our relationships here on the board. And we don't have to be best friends, but we do have to work together to serve our community. And that's all that I would like to ask from each one of you guys, including myself, and hold myself accountable as we hold each other accountable.
And can I add to that, please take into consideration what was said. I think Trustee Rodriguez Pena brought it up first about tone and body language. That means a lot. It really, really means a lot. How you talk to somebody, how it's received, how your body language is also a way of how it's received. So keep that in mind as well.
Like that saying, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I agreed. With that being said, it is actually time for moving on to item 5.1, everybody's favorite, adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn this
Motion.
meeting?
Adjourn.
We have a first. Can I get a second? We have a second by Board Member Rodriguez Pena. Any discussion? None being said, I do see that Board Member Rodriguez Pena put her computer away, so please, let's do it by vote. We'll start on my right, Board Member Greer,
Yes.
Board Member Benavides, Board Member Rodriguez Pena,
Yes.
and Board Member Ramos.
Yes.
Great. Then it's a 5-0. This meeting is adjourned at 8:22 p.m. Good night, everybody.